Chapter 20. It was late February, and we were just over a month into the spring semester. I sat at the table, going over fourth-grade arithmetic papers while the children were out at recess. The older children could be heard playing rag ball behind the church. In front, a group of smaller boys were shooting marbles, and several girls were jumping rope beside the church. I could hear the rope hitting the ground and the rhythmic hand-clapping and singing. The marble game was barely audible, but the rag ball players behind the church were loud and clear, and it took all my concentration to go on with my work. The children had been outside about 10 minutes, when I felt that one of them had come back inside and was standing down the aisle in front of me. I finished correcting the paper before looking up. Farrell Giroux stood in front of the table with his hat in his hand. "Mr. Farrell," I said, standing quickly. He looked very small and very sad. He had come to tell me something, but he didn't know how to say it. "Didn't mean to barge in," he said. "I was just sitting here," I said, trying to put him at ease. He looked at me and batted his eyes a few times. "Is something the matter, Mr. Farrell?" "They want you up there," he said. He wanted me to read more into what he had said than he had told me. "At the front?" I asked him. He nodded. He wanted me to read more into his nod. I waited for him to go on. "That boy." He fidgeted with his hat. He didn't want to say any more. I waited. "They done set the date," he said, but not wanting to say it. "They want you and Mose up there. They want y'all to tell her." "When?" "Right now, I reckon." "I still have another hour of class." "I just take their message, Professor." He lowered his eyes and fidgeted with his hat again. "Thank you, Mr. Farrell." He nodded and started up the aisle, stoop-shouldered and very small. I saw him put on his hat as he went down the steps into the yard. When he came out into the road, he looked up the corridor toward the big house, but instead of going back to work, he turned left and went home. I had followed him to the door, and now I went outside to tell the children that recess was over. They formed a double line, boys in one line and girls in the other, according to grades and sizes. After they had come in and sat down, I gave them assignments and told them I had to go up to the big house and that I was leaving Irene in charge. If anybody caused any trouble, I would deal with that tomorrow. I asked Irene to walk with me to the door, and I told her to dismiss the children at 3 o'clock. I didn't tell her why I had to go to the house. The sky was overcast, and there was a chill in the air. Grinding was over, and the people had begun to chop up the ground for new planting. Flocks of blackbirds followed the tractors, searching in the fresh, uncovered earth for insects and worms. The plum tree in the Coles front yard and the cherry tree in the Freeman's side yard were covered with blossoms, white and lavender. The pecan trees were bare, gray, and leafless, but the live oaks and magnolias were full of leaves. The road was fairly dry, but the ditches on either side still held water from the heavy rains we had had during the past couple of months. When I came up to Henri Pachot's house, I saw Reverend Ambrose's black Ford parked under the tree in the backyard. Inez opened the kitchen door when I knocked. The preacher sat at the table, drinking coffee. Inez asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee, but I said no. She left the kitchen. Reverend Ambrose asked me about my aunt. He had seen her at church only a few days before, but he didn't know what else to talk to me about. I told him she was all right. He wanted to know about school, and I said that everything was going pretty well there, too. We were quiet then, because he could not think of anything else to say to me, and I had nothing to say to him. Inez came back into the kitchen and told us that Henri Pachot had called the sheriff and that the sheriff would be here in 15 to 20 minutes. "I hope this is not one of those days," I said. "I thought he was already here." "You sure I can't get you a cup of coffee?" Inez offered again. "No, thanks," I said. "I have a lot of work to do at school. I hope I don't have to hang around here all day." "I'm sure he's on his way," Inez said. Reverend Ambrose, who sat very close to the table, raised his coffee cup to his mouth, then returned it to the saucer quietly. As promised, The sheriff was knocking on the front door about 15 minutes later. His knock was not a request for entry. It was an announcement that he was already coming in. Inez sighed deeply, thanking God, and went to the front of the house. I heard the sheriff asking her if we were there, and a moment later she came back into the kitchen. "They want y'all in the front," she said. This was the first time I had been in any part of Pacho's house other than the kitchen, and I was sure that it was the first time for the minister as well. I waited for him to move first, but he was waiting on me. I made a respectful gesture for him to precede me, but he would not move, was afraid to move, until Inez took the lead. Henri Pachot and the sheriff stood by the fireplace talking. Pachot wore a brown and tan plaid jacket, a tan vest, an open-collar shirt, and dark trousers. Sheriff Guidry wore a gray suit, a string tie, and black cowboy boots. He held his cowboy hat against his leg. He and Pachot looked at us as we came into the room. I had never seen Pachot look so worried. "Have a seat," he said. "The sheriff has something to say." All the furniture in the room was old, faded, overstuffed chairs, an old overstuffed love seat, an overstuffed couch, and a rattan rocker with a pillow. The lamp tables were old, and the lamps and lamp shades looked just as old. Reverend Ambrose and I sat on the edge of the couch. The sheriff sat in one of the chairs and held onto his hat, so I figured that what he had to say was not going to take very long. Henri Pachot stood at the fireplace, his back against the mantel. Behind him, a couple of smoldering logs sent a thin stream of gray smoke and an occasional spark up the chimney. "The warrant came down from the governor today," Guidry spoke hesitantly. "It happened second Friday after Easter." Inez came into the room with 2 cups of coffee on a silver tray. Pachot added sugar and milk to 1 cup and removed it from the tray. The sheriff rested his hat on one knee as he took the other cup from the tray. He added sugar, stirring slowly. "I want things to go on as they have. Don't cause trouble for him." The sheriff looked at me. "When I left him, he was calm. He seemed to understand. I want to keep it that way. Any questions?" Reverend Ambrose and I exchanged glances, but neither of us had a question now. "What about her?" Guidry asked. "The wife said she might need a doctor." "That's mighty kindly," Reverend Ambrose said. "My thanks to Miss Edna." "I'll send Dr. Guillory when I get back to town," the sheriff said. "Any other questions?" "I want us to have an understanding." "Why that date?" I asked. Guidry drank from his cup and looked over the rim at me. He did not like me. I was one of the smart ones. He and Pachot exchanged glances. I could tell that they had been talking about it before Reverend Ambrose and I came into the room. Pachot left the explanation up to the sheriff. "Easter," he said. He did not want to go on, but he felt he should. After all, a man was going to be put to death. "It had to be before or after Easter. It couldn't happen during Lent." I would learn later from the young deputy that the governor had originally signed an execution order to be carried out 2 weeks before Ash Wednesday. But one of his aides pointed out that another execution was scheduled during that time, and because of our state's heavily Catholic population, it might not go well to have 2 executions just before the beginning of Lent. "Can we still visit him like we've been doing?" I asked. "Sure," the sheriff said. "But just remember, keep it down. I don't want you aggravating him. He's got just over a month. April 8th. "April 8th, I said to no one. April 8th. "Friday, April 8th, between noon and 3, the sheriff said. "Between noon and 3, I said to no one. "Well, if there ain't no more questions, I'll have to get on back to town," Guidry said. He finished his coffee and set the cup and saucer on a lamp table. "You won't forget the doctor, Sheriff?" Reverend Ambrose asked. "You think she'll need him?" "She ain't been too well lately," the Reverend said. "I'll call him from here," Guidry said. "Can he drive down the quarter?" "It's passable," Pachot said. "I went down there yesterday." The sheriff went to the telephone table, and made his call to Bayonne. I could hear only part of what he was saying because I could not get that date and time out of my mind. How do people come up with a date and a time to take life from another man? Who made them God? "Audrey, let me speak to Sid," Guidry was saying over the telephone. 12 white men say a black man must die, and another white man sets the date and time without consulting one black person. Justice? "The old woman," the sheriff was saying to the doctor. "I think she is the one who attended the trial. Worked for the family." "His nanny," Reverend Ambrose said weakly. The sheriff did not hear the minister. "Yes, it's passable, Sid. You won't get your brown and white shoes dirty." "They sentenced you to death because you were at the wrong place at the wrong time, with no proof that you had anything at all to do with the crime other than being there when it happened. Yet 6 months later they come and unlock your cage and tell you, we, us, white folks all, have decided it's time for you to die, because this is the convenient date and time." "Oh, she's all right, and how's Lucy?" the sheriff asked the doctor about his wife. "And on Friday, too. Always on Friday. Same time as he died, between 12 and 3. But they can't take this one's life too soon after the recognition of his death, because it might upset the sensitive few. It can happen less than 2 weeks later, though, because even the sensitive few will have forgotten about their Savior's death by then." "Give Lucy my love," Guidry said. "I owe you one." The sheriff hung up the telephone and turned to us. "He's on his way, and I have to head on back myself. No other questions?" We had no more questions. "Thank y'all for coming," Pacho said. But he was not thanking us for gracing his home with our presence so much as he was telling us that it was time to leave. Reverend Ambrose and I got up from the couch and went back into the kitchen. Inez looked at us, crying. "We must all show courage for Sister Emma's sake," Reverend Ambrose said to her. Inez raised the end of her apron and wiped her eyes. "You drove?" Reverend Ambrose asked me. I walked. "Well, you can ride back down the quarter with me," he said. "I'm not going back down there right now," I said. "I'm not going back down there and tell her he's going to die April 8th. Not me." "You'd have the strength if you had God," Reverend Ambrose said. "That's where you come in, Reverend," I said. "I'm going for a walk, a long walk in the opposite direction. Excuse me." I went across the backyard out to the road, and I turned left and walked over to the highway and down to the river. The river still ran high from all the rain we had had in the past couple of months, and from the water that drained into it from the bayous and fields. I walked in the ankle-high grass a safe distance from where the water flowed upon the bank, until I found a good place to stop. I could see the houses and trees on the other bank, and the cars moving on the road behind them. I tried wiping that away. I wanted to see nothing but miles and miles of clear blue water, then an island where I could be alone, or Vivian and me, just the two of us, and absolutely no one else. No one else. But the river remained the same, high and muddy, and I started walking again. When I could go no farther without getting my feet wet, I went up the bank and walked alongside the road. I must have gone 3 or 4 miles before turning back. I figured that by now the minister and my aunt had seen Miss Emma, and the doctor had probably visited her, and other women in the quarter had gone to look after her too. It was near dark when I reached the quarter, and I went back to the church to get my satchel. Irene had collected all the papers and stacked them neatly on the table, and had left me a note saying that the children had been orderly. I stuffed the note and the papers inside my satchel and left the church. Chapter 21. 2 cars were parked in front of Miss Emma's house, and as I got closer, I saw that one was Reverend Ambrose's. The porch light was on, and though I didn't feel like going into the house, I thought I owed Miss Emma that respect. The door was shut against the cold, but someone opened it immediately when I knocked. The room was crowded and warm from a nice fire in the fireplace. People spoke quietly, but still it was noisy. Inez was there, and I asked her about Miss Emma. She nodded toward the bed. Miss Emma lay under a quilt, her head resting on 2 pillows. The mosquito bar hung on the bed behind her. I asked her how she felt. She did not answer. Only a slight movement at the corners of her mouth showed that she had heard me. Her eyes were looking at something that was not in the room. I left the bed and went into the kitchen, where most of the talking was going on. My aunt was in charge there. As Miss Emma's best friend, she was taking over now that Miss Emma had taken to her bed. She was at the stove making coffee. You could smell that Lausanne coffee all over the kitchen. Reverend Ambrose was sitting at the table talking to a couple of people who did not live in the quarter. He gave me a long, hard look to let me know what he thought of me, but I already knew what he thought of me, and I turned away from him. Irene, who was helping my aunt in the kitchen, asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. I told her no, and I thanked her for taking over the class from me that afternoon. She told me she liked the practice. I knew that she wanted to be a teacher. My aunt heard us talking and turned from the stove to look at me. I could see in her face that she and Reverend Ambrose had had a conversation about me, and he had probably said some things that I would not care to hear. She told me that my food was on the back of the stove at home, but I would have to warm it if I wanted to eat. She had nothing else to say to me and started talking to someone else. After I had been there 10 minutes, I left the house. At home, I lit a fire to warm the food: cabbage with salt pork and Irish potatoes. I didn't have to warm up the cornbread. I made a fire in my aunt's room so it would be warm when she came home, and I went around to my side of the house and lit a fire there too. By now the food was warm, and I went back into the kitchen to eat, sitting near the stove, with the plate balanced on my left hand. I had just finished eating and was washing the plate in the pan of soap water when I heard someone come up on the front porch. Vivian was at the door. We stood there looking at each other a moment. Then she came in and took off her coat and galoshes. We went to sit at the fire in my room. I told her the only thing I could offer her was a cup of coffee. We went into the kitchen and warmed the coffee and returned to my room to sit before the fire. "After I heard about it, I knew I had to see you," she said. "I was coming to you tonight." "I didn't know that." "I'm glad you came." We finished our coffee, and I took the empty cups to the kitchen and washed them. When I came back to the room, I asked Vivian to lie on the bed beside me. We lay on our sides for a while, then we lay on our backs, looking up at the ceiling. The room's only light came from the fireplace. "When are you going back?" Vivian asked me. "I don't know," I said. "I'll have to talk to Miss Emma." "Have you seen her?" "She's in bed." Vivian was quiet a moment. "Is that her house up there where the cars are?" "Yes." "I wanted to stop in, but I didn't know if I should." "You can go by before you leave." "You think I ought to?" she asked. "I want you to," I said. "You think this is a good time?" "I think so." "I don't want to cause any trouble." "You won't." "I want them to like me," she said. "They will. They'll have to." "I don't want it that way." "I'm going to live my own life, Vivian, and I hope you're part of it. If they like it, it's all right. If they don't, it's the same." Vivian was quiet. We were holding hands, lying very close together with all our clothes on. After 15 or 20 minutes, we got up and got our coats. Vivian put on her galoshes. Her car was parked behind mine in front of the house. I said that we could come back and get her car later. I told her to walk in my tracks so her galoshes would not get muddy. We could hear the people inside the house as we came onto the porch. There were more people at the house now, and we had to push our way through to reach the bed. "I brought someone to see you, Miss Emma," I said. Vivian moved closer to the bed, and Miss Emma's face showed that she remembered her. Vivian leaned over and whispered something to Miss Emma, and as she stood back, Miss Emma's eyes followed her. I could see in her eyes that she was pleased with what Vivian had said. I introduced Vivian to others in the room, then we went into the kitchen. Aunt Lou was at the stove, pouring hot water over the coffee grounds while talking to Mrs. Sarah James. Mrs. Sarah greeted me, and my aunt turned around and saw Vivian standing there. "Miss Louise," Vivian said. Miss, Tant Lu said, very polite. She really knew how to be polite to people when she felt they were interfering with something that belonged to her. She would not look at me. Irene Cole came into the kitchen, and she gave Vivian the same look, polite but cold. I introduced Vivian to her. Vivian nodded and smiled. Irene nodded but did not smile. "I can get you a cup of coffee?" she asked Vivian. "Yes, thank you," Vivian said. I knew Vivian didn't want the coffee, but it would have seemed impolite to refuse it. With her cup of coffee, Vivian and I went into the front room again. Inez told me that Miss Emma wanted to speak to me before I left. I went back to the bed. Miss Emma nodded for me to sit down. The people who stood near the bed moved away so that Miss Emma and I could speak in privacy. Miss Emma looked up at me, and I was hoping that she would not start crying again. I felt very uncomfortable sitting there. "I don't know when I can go back up there," she said. She was speaking slowly and just above a whisper. She was not trying to keep others from hearing her. She had cried so much that she could not speak any louder. "It's in your hands," she said. "You and Reverend Mose. I just hope, I just hope y'all work together." I looked away from her for a moment, but when I faced her again, I saw that those eyes had not changed. I told her that I would try, and I stood up and looked around for Vivian. She was standing with one of my students by the door to the kitchen. Vivian was nodding and smiling. "That your girlfriend, Mr. Wiggins?" the boy asked when I came over. "Yes," I said. "You're not trying to steal her, are you?" "Sir?" The boy seemed surprised. "No, sir. She too old for me." Vivian laughed. "You're about ready?" I asked her. She took her empty coffee cup into the kitchen, and when she returned to the front room, she went to the bed to let Miss Emma know she was leaving. I saw Miss Emma watching her as she came back to me. "I need a stiff drink," I said, when we were outside. "You don't have anything in your car, do you?" "Nothing," Vivian said. "What time is it?" I asked. 7:30, quarter to 8, Vivian said, without looking at her little wristwatch. "Still early. I'll follow you back to town." "There's nothing closer?" "Not unless I went to that back room at the corner store. You know I can't do that." It was dark after leaving the yard, and we walked single file and close to the ditch until we reached the cars. I opened the door, and Vivian got inside and rolled down the window. "I'll see you at the Rainbow," I said, and kissed her. I showed her a good place to turn around. Then I got into my car and followed her red lights out of the quarter. 20 minutes later, we were sitting at a table at the Rainbow Club in Bayonne. I asked for a brandy setup, and Shirley brought us a half pint of Christian Brothers, a small pitcher of water, a bowl of ice, and 4 glasses. We drank the brandy straight up from 2 glasses, then we followed it with ice water from the other glasses. "I think Irene is in love with you," Vivian said, suddenly, as though she had been holding this in for a while. "Just as my aunt is," I said. "The other way," Vivian said. "I can name about a dozen younger than Irene, and about that many old as my aunt who are in love with me," I said. "But I love only one woman." "Don't you think she loves you?" Vivian asked, seriously. "Sure," I said. "I mean it," she said. "I'm not playing." "I mean it too," I said. I had taken a good shot of the brandy, and I was beginning to feel much better. "Irene loves me. My aunt loves me. The rest of them love me too, and don't want an outsider taking me away from them. They want me for their own. Isn't that how it is everywhere?" "I don't know anything about everywhere," Vivian said. "Of course you do," I said. "It's the same old story. People want to keep a local boy for themselves because they have so little." "I'm not talking about the people," Vivian said. "I'm talking about Irene with those big brown cow eyes." "Big brown cow eyes?" I said. "You know what I'm talking about," Vivian said. "Don't tell me you're jealous of that child." "Well?" "Well what? Is she in love with you?" Well, I'll be damned, I said. I had taken another shot of the brandy. Well? You still don't understand, do you? I understand young gals very well, Vivian said. Do you? I understand young gals and old ladies, too, I said. And by the way, what did you say to Miss Emma to make her look at you the way she did? I told her I was praying for both of them, Vivian said. That's the best thing you could have said. Get back to Irene, Vivian said. She's the one we're talking about. Irene and my aunt want from me what Miss Emma wants from Jefferson, I said. I don't know if Miss Emma ever had anybody in her past that she could be proud of. Possibly, maybe not. But she wants that now, and she wants it from him. Irene and my aunt want it from me. Miss Emma knows that the state of Louisiana is about to take his life, but before that happens, she wants something to remember him by. Irene and my aunt both know that one day I will leave them, but they are not about to let me go without a fight. It's the same thing, the very same thing. Miss Emma needs a memory. Do you know what she told me when I sat on the bed? That Reverend Ambrose and I should get along, and together we should try to reach Jefferson. Why not only Reverend Ambrose? Why not only the soul? No, she wants memories, memories of him standing like a man. Oh, she will meet him soon, and she knows that. But she wants memories, if only for a day, an hour here on earth. Do you understand? No, Vivian said. She wasn't drinking anymore. Let me explain it to you. Let me see if I can explain it to you, I said. The brandy was really working well now. We black men have failed to protect our women since the time of slavery. We stay here in the South and are broken, or we run away and leave them alone to look after the children and themselves. So each time a male child is born, they hope he will be the one to change this vicious circle, which he never does. Because even though he wants to change it, and maybe even tries to change it, it is too heavy a burden because of all the others who have run away and left their burdens behind. So he too must run away if he is to hold on to his sanity and have a life of his own. I can see by your face you don't agree, so I'll try again. What she wants is for him, Jefferson, and me to change everything that has been going on for 300 years. She wants it to happen so in case she ever gets out of her bed again, she can go to that little church there in the quarter and say proudly, "You see, I told you he was a man." And if she dies an hour after that, all right. But what she wants to hear first is that he did not crawl to that white man, that he stood at that last moment and walked. Because if he does not, she knows that she will never get another chance to see a black man stand for her. And for my aunt and Irene, it is the same. Who else does my aunt have? She has never been married. She raised my mother because my mother's mother, who was her sister, gave my mother to her when she was only a baby, to follow a man whom the South had run away, just as my own mother and my own father left me with her for greener pastures. And for Irene and for others there in the quarter, it's the same. They look at their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles, their brothers, all broken. They see me and I, who grew up on that same plantation, can teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. I can give them something that neither a husband, a father, nor a grandfather ever did. So they want to hold on as long as they can, not realizing that their holding on will break me too. That in order for me to be what they think I am, what they want me to be, I must run as the others have done in the past. I drank. Now do you see? Do you see? Will that circle ever be broken? I drank some ice water to chase down the brandy. It's up to Jefferson, my love. Chapter 22. When I came into the office, Paul looked me straight in the face. He knew it was unnecessary to search me and the food, but he knew he had to do it. He also knew that he should not even think about not doing it. It was as much his duty as wearing the uniform and carrying the cell keys. But you could see in his eyes that he was wondering why. Even when he was searching me and not looking in my face, I could tell by the light touches on my pockets that he didn't want to do it. And with the food, it was the same. The chief deputy sat behind the desk, watching everything. To him, this was how things were supposed to be and how they would be. Paul and I left the office and walked down the narrow, dark corridor. "Where would you like to meet him?" he asked. "In his cell, I don't mind." "You want me close by?" "No, I don't think so." "It can be different now," Paul said. "I'll be okay," I said. "How is he?" "He's taking it pretty good." "Any changes?" "I haven't noticed any." We came up to the steel door to the cell block. "You sure you want to be alone?" Paul asked again. "You're the first visitor since that news." "I'm sure I'll be all right." "If you say so." He opened the steel door. For the first time, the prisoners did not call to me or stick their hands through the bars as I passed. Some spoke quietly, others only nodded, but all were watching. Paul and I continued down the block to the last cell. Jefferson was lying on his back, staring up at the ceiling. Paul looked at me again. I nodded to him to indicate that I was not afraid and that I wanted to be alone with Jefferson. The deputy opened the cell door and let me in. Then he locked it and left. "How are you, Jefferson?" "I'm all right." "I brought you some food," I said. His body took up the bunk, so I set the bag of food on the floor near his head. I went to the wall and stood under the window. "You need anything, Jefferson?" He shook his head. "You want to talk about anything?" He shook his head again. Then he just lay there staring up at the ceiling while I stood watching him. "What day is it?" he asked, without looking at me. "It's Friday, Jefferson," I said. "Friday," he said to himself. "Friday." He was quiet for a moment. Then he slowly let his feet slide to the floor as he sat up on the bunk. "Look like it's pretty out there," he said, gazing up at the window. "Yes, it's a nice day," I said. "No clouds anywhere, just blue." "You think it's going to be like that day?" he asked. I didn't answer him. He was looking out the window when he said it. Now he turned to me. "I hope it's the kind of day you want, Jefferson," I said. "The kind of day I want?" he said. "The kind of day I want?" "I never got nothing I wanted in my whole life. Now I'm going to get a whole day?" I didn't know what to say. He looked at me a while, then he turned to the window again. "Do you like fruit, Jefferson?" I asked him. "I can pick up some fruit and some pecans, ice cream, funny books, things like that." "I want me a whole gallon of ice cream," he said, still looking out the window. I saw a slight smile come on his face, and it was not a bitter smile, not bitter at all. "A whole gallon vanilla ice cream, eat it with a pot spoon, my last supper. A whole gallon of ice cream." He looked at me again. "Ain't never had enough ice cream. Never had more than a nickel cone. Used to run out in a quarter and hand the ice cream man my nickel, and he'd give me a little scoop on a cone. But now I'm gonna get me a whole gallon. That's what I want, a whole gallon. Eat it with a pot spoon." "I can bring you some ice cream any time, Jefferson," I said. "I'm gonna wait," he said. "I'm gonna wait. I want a whole gallon. Eat it with a pot spoon. Every bit of it, with a pot spoon." He smiled. He smiled now because he had something pleasant to look forward to, though it would be on that last day, and he would save it until the very last moment. "You want to hear about the news from the quarter?" I asked him. "Stella had her baby." He looked at me, not as he had done in the past, in pain, with hate. He looked at me with an inner calmness now. "Was it the ice cream?" "He favor Gable?" he asked. "With little babies, they don't favor anybody too much," I said. "Oh, Gable," he said, and smiled to himself. "Got hisself a baby. Got hisself a baby." Then I saw the face change. He was no longer smiling but staring at the wall. "We were supposed to go hunting that day." He had forgotten about the ice cream now. He was remembering the day he was supposed to go into the swamp with Gable, but instead had ended up with Brother and Bear at the liquor store. "Inez is still giving her fares up the quarter," I said, trying to get him back. but no music, no dancing. She calls that sinning. If you want your music at a fair, you have to go down to Willie Aaron's house. Willie still has that stack of old low-down blues, Tampa Red, Mercy D, you know, all of them. He was not listening to me now. He seemed to be thinking about hunting with Gable. I just thought of something, I told him. Let me bring you a little radio. You can have music all the time. You can listen to Randy's record shop late at night. Randy still on? He asked, looking at the wall, not at me. Yes, he's still on, I said. I was listening to him just the other night. I have to play the radio low so Tant Lou can't hear it. These old people, you know. All music except church music is sinning music. So I play it so low I can hardly hear it myself. I laughed to make him laugh. But he did not. Do you want me to bring you a little radio next time I come? I asked him. He nodded. Yeah. Edwin's has these little Philcos, not too big, I said, and I boxed my hands to show him the approximate size of the radio. Would you like one of those? He nodded. I wish I had the money on me, I said. I'd go and get it right now. Don't bother, he said. He said it as though he didn't believe I really wanted to get it for him. I'll get it tomorrow, I said. I'll have them bring it to you so you'll have music over the weekend. He didn't have anything more to say. He sat there, not looking out the window now, but looking down at the floor as if he had forgotten about the radio, about the ice cream, about Gable, about everything. I wanted to leave then to go home for the money to buy the radio, but I was afraid that the sheriff and his deputies might misinterpret my reason for leaving so early. I was sure they were paying closer attention to everything now, and they would not have understood my reason for leaving earlier than I usually did. So I just stood there until the deputy came to let me out. Paul wanted to know how everything had gone between Jefferson and me, and I told him it was better than ever. He looked at me as if he felt I was making this all up, but I could see in his face that he wanted to believe it. I told him that I had promised Jefferson a radio, and that I would go home and get the money to buy one. I would get it from Edwin's department store and then leave it here for one of them to take to Jefferson so that he would have music over the weekend. Paul thought it was a good idea, and he promised to give the radio to Jefferson himself. I didn't go home. I thought I would borrow the money from Vivian, and I went back of town to the Rainbow Club to wait until she got out of class. The bar was in semi-darkness as usual, with the usual 2 or 3 old men, talking more than drinking, and Claiborne behind the bar talking with them. I ordered a beer and told Claiborne about the radio. He didn't charge me for the beer, and he went back down the bar and spoke to the old men. Then he came back with a couple of dollar bills and some change. He took $5 out of an old leather wallet that had once been light brown but had turned almost black over the many years that it had gone in and out of Claiborne's back pocket. Thanks, I said. I'll get it back to you sometime this weekend. The muscle in his left jaw moved a little to show that he had smiled. Then he jerked his head toward the wall, a sign that I should go around to the other side and see what I could get in there. So after finishing the beer, I went through the side door into the cafe. It was much more brightly lit than the bar, warmer, and you could smell the food from the kitchen. A man and a woman ate at one of the tables. Another man sat eating alone at the counter, and Thelma was behind the counter, near the cash register. Well, well, look what the cat dragged in, she said. I had been at the Rainbow quite a few times lately, but I had not eaten in the cafe. I told Thelma about the radio, and I told her that Claiborne had donated something. She listened patiently, and I could see her face changing from patience to sadness to anger. Her mouth tightened as she looked around the room at her 3 customers, then back at me again. The anger had left. You hungry? She asked. It was stern but loving, too. No, I ate before I came, I told her. She didn't believe me. I got some smothered steaks there, she said. Shrimps? Chicken? I'm not hungry. You want to get that radio now? I would like to get it this afternoon. How much they cost? About $20. Eat something. I'll make up the rest, she said. She went back into the kitchen and dished up some rice and beefsteak and sweet peas, and she added a little lettuce and tomato salad and a couple of slices of light bread. "How much more you need?" she asked, after she had set the food down before me. "About $10, I said. "But listen, Thelma, I can borrow some of that money from Vivian." "Vivian got them children," she said. "I can let you have it. I'll bring it back tomorrow." "I ain't in no hurry." I ate the food hungrily because I had not had dinner, and I sopped up the gravy with the light bread. Thelma watched me all the time. When I was finished, she put a wrinkled $10 bill on the counter by my plate. "Here." It was the kind of here your mother, or your big sister, or your great aunt, or your grandmother would have said. It was the kind of here that let you know this was hard-earned money, but also that you needed it more than she did, and the kind of here that said she wished you had it and didn't have to borrow it from her. But since you didn't have it, and she did, then here it was, with a kind of love. It was the kind of here that asked the question, when will all this end? When will a man not have to struggle to have money to get what he needs? Here. When will a man be able to live without having to kill another man? Here. I took the money without looking at her. I didn't say thanks. I knew she didn't want to hear it. I went out to my car and drove back uptown. Edwin's was not the best store in town, but it was the place where most people bought what they needed. Those with money went either to Morgan's department store or to Baton Rouge and New Orleans. As you came into the store, you saw clothes for women on the left and clothes for men on the right, all set out neatly. There were no other customers and just one saleswoman, who did not show much interest in me. I went to the back of the store, passing the furniture department, with its chairs, couches, beds, chiffon-robes, dressers, then the refrigerators and ice boxes, gas and wood-burning stoves, washing machines. Then there was the garden and yard equipment, hoes, rakes, shovels, axe handles, mowing machines, yo-yo blades, cane knives. And at the very end of the store were the radios and kitchen appliances, on shelves against the wall. I saw the little radio that I had in mind, and I took it down from the shelf to look at it more closely and feel its weight. Then I set it back on the shelf and turned on the knob, and after warming up for a few seconds, it started playing. I moved the lighted dial to get another station. I could find only 3, 2 in Baton Rouge and 1 in New Orleans, but that was normal for this time of day. At night, you were able to tune in others. You could get one as far west as Del Rio, Texas, and another as far east as Nashville. I was still listening to one of the Baton Rouge stations when the saleswoman came up behind me. "You gonna buy that?" I looked around at the short, stout, powder-faced white woman. "Yes, ma'am." Her face changed, but only a little. "How much is it?" I asked. $20, plus tax." "Do you have one in a box?" "That one's brand new," she said. Her face was getting hard again. "It's a present," I said. "I would like one in a box." "I can put this one in a box," she said. "No, ma'am, I want a brand new one," I said, "if you have one." "You can have this one for $1 less," she said. "I prefer a brand new one. Please, ma'am," I said. She snapped the radio off and turned away. She was gone about 15 minutes. I knew it couldn't possibly take her that long to find another radio. But because I had refused to take the used one, and because she felt quite sure there was no place in Bayonne where I could find another one, she knew I had little choice but to wait until she got back. "Brand new one," she said behind me. "Seal ain't even broke." "Does it have batteries?" I asked her. "It's ready to play," she said. "You want it?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. She started up the aisle toward the cash register, but just about then another white woman came into the store. The clerk set the radio beside the cash register and went to see what the white woman wanted. The other woman was not buying anything. She only wanted to talk. So they stood there about 10 minutes before the clerk came back to wait on me. After ringing up the bill, she asked me if I needed a bag, but she asked it in a way that I knew she didn't want to give me one. "No thanks," I told her, and after paying, I tucked the little radio under my arm and left. The courthouse was to the right and across the street from the store. I walked between the parked cars and past the statue of the Confederate soldier and the state, national, and Confederate flags. Paul and Sheriff Guidry were in the office. Paul saw the package under my arm, and I could see that he was happy that I had remembered. The sheriff looked up at me from his desk. "Well, Professor, is that the radio?" "Yes, sir. I hope you don't mind." "No, I don't mind this time," he said. "But from now on, you ask permission before you bring anything else in here." I spoke to the deputy. "The deputy can't give you permission to bring things in here. I do," he said. I was quiet. "Leave it," the sheriff said. "I'll see that he gets it. Batteries, I hope?" "Yes, sir. Batteries," I said. I had almost said batteries. "How did it go today?" he asked. "All right," I said. The sheriff nodded. "I'll see he gets it." "Thank you, sir." I looked at Paul. He nodded and smiled. He probably would have said something encouraging if the sheriff had not been there. I went to my car and drove back to the Rainbow, hoping that Vivian would be there, and that we would have a drink and just sit there in the semi-darkness alone, together. Chapter 23. Miss Emma felt well enough on Monday to accompany my aunt and Reverend Ambrose to visit Jefferson. After the usual search, Paul led them to the day room, then went to the cell for Jefferson. Jefferson asked if he could take the radio. The deputy said no. Jefferson said he wouldn't go. I would hear later that Jefferson had not turned the radio off since Paul brought it to him on Friday evening. The other prisoners could hear the radio at all times of the day and night. No one else had a radio, and the prisoners wished he would play it louder, but no one would dare say anything to him. The prisoners nearest his cell could faintly hear the music he played, but the ones farther away could only hear static, though he searched day and night for stronger stations. "You want me to bring them here?" Paul asked Jefferson. Jefferson went on listening to the radio without answering him. The deputy returned to the day room and told Miss Emma what had happened. She had already set the table, and she and my aunt and Reverend Ambrose had taken their places, leaving a space for Jefferson. The food, beef stew and Irish potatoes, was still in the pot and covered. A tablespoon and a paper napkin lay beside each tin pan on a white tablecloth. "Radio?" Miss Emma asked Paul. "Grant bought him one." "When?" "Last Friday." "That mean he ain't coming?" "That's what he said," the deputy told her. Miss Emma sat staring at the space where Jefferson was supposed to sit. Then she looked up at Paul again. "Can we go to him?" she asked. "Sure," he said, "but it's going to be uncomfortable. Y'all trying to eat out of them pans standing up." "We don't mind," Miss Emma said, and pushed herself up from the table. My aunt helped her collect everything. Then the three of them followed the deputy back to the cell. Jefferson lay on his bunk, listening to music on the radio. 45 minutes later, when Paul returned to the cell, he found the radio turned off and Jefferson lying on his side, facing the wall, his back to the people. The deputy opened the door to let them out, and Jefferson turned from the wall and snapped on the radio. Paul told Miss Emma that the sheriff wanted to see her. The sheriff was sitting behind his desk. There were 2 empty chairs, but he did not ask anyone to sit down. "He give you any trouble back there?" the sheriff asked Miss Emma. "No, sir." "I said from the start I didn't want any trouble," the sheriff said. "If that radio is causing any trouble, I'll get it out of there." "It ain't causing no trouble," Miss Emma said. "He didn't come to the day room." "We went to him. We managed." "Standing up?" "Yes, sir. We didn't mind." "You minded before," the sheriff said. "That's why you went and worried my wife." "Yes, sir," Miss Emma said. "Listen," the sheriff said, pointing a finger across the desk. "He hasn't got much time. I don't want any trouble. Y'all have to work together with that teacher." "We gonna work together," Miss Emma said. "I'll talk to Grant when I get back." "What about you, Reverend?" the sheriff asked. My duty to stand by Sister Emma, Reverend Ambrose said. And what about Jefferson? The sheriff asked. What about his soul? According to Paul, who told me this later, Reverend Ambrose lowered his eyes and did not answer. All right, the sheriff said. Y'all work it out your way. Any problems, and I'll take that radio or stop the visits. Reverend Ambrose came back to the quarter between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, and when I dismissed school, one of the boys came back to tell me that my aunt wanted to see me at Miss Emma's house before I went home. All three of them were sitting around the kitchen table when I came in. They had already finished their coffee. The cups were still on the table, but empty. You know what you done? My aunt asked me. I could tell by her face and her voice that she was mad. What did I do? I asked. Why? Why what, Tant Lou? That radio, she said. That radio. What's wrong with the radio? What's wrong with it? Reverend Ambrose cut in. What's wrong with it? That's all he do. Listen to that radio. That's what's wrong with it. And what's wrong with that? I asked. He didn't have time to come sit down with us today. That's what's wrong with that, the minister said. He ain't got time for nothing else. That's what's wrong with that. Jefferson needs something in that cell, I said. Yes, he do, the minister said. You hit the nail on the head, mister. Yes, he do, but not that box. And what do you suggest, Reverend Ambrose? I asked. God, the minister said. He ain't got but 5 more Fridays and a half. He needs God in that cell and not that sin box. What sin box? I said. What you call that kind of music he listened to? The minister asked. Us standing in there trying to talk to him, and him listening to that thing till she got to reach over and turn it off. What you call it? I call it company, Reverend Ambrose, I said. And I call it sin company, he said. And I don't care what you call it, I said to him. Grant, my aunt said. I could see that she was becoming more and more angry with me. Now she got up from her chair. You don't talk like that, she said. Never. Louise, Miss Emma called to her. Louise. I didn't raise you that way, my aunt said, coming toward me. Louise, please, Lord, don't. Miss Emma pushed up from her chair. My aunt stopped a step or two away from me, though it was clear she wanted to slap me. We have to get something straight around here, I said. And right now, I don't know a thing about God or sin. What I do know is, my Lord, the minister said, looking at me as if I were the devil himself. Listen to the teacher of our children. Last Friday, I continued, was the first time, the very first time that Jefferson looked at me without hate, without accusing me of putting him in that cell. Last Friday was the first time he ever asked me a question or answered me without accusing me for his condition. I don't know if you all know what I'm talking about. It seems you don't. But I found a way to reach him for the first time. Now he needs that radio, and he wants it. He wants something of his own before he dies. He wants a gallon of ice cream for his last supper. Did he tell you that? Did he tell you he never had enough ice cream? Did he tell you that he never had a radio of his own before? Did he tell you any of this? He wants those things before he dies. He has only a month to live, and all I'm trying to do is make it as comfortable as I can for him. And after that radio and that ice cream, how about his soul, mister? My aunt asked me. I don't know a thing about the soul, I said. Yes, you do, she said. She tightened her mouth. She wanted to cry, and she wanted to slap me. Not only for this moment, but for all those years that I had refused to go to her church. Yes, you do, she said, shaking her head, 'cause I raised you better. And you sent me to him, Tant Lou, I said, and I'm only trying to reach him the best way I can. Turning him against God? Tant Lou, that radio has nothing to do with turning Jefferson against God, I said. That radio is there to help him not think about death. He's locked up in that cage like an animal. And what else can he think about but that last day and that last hour? That radio makes it less painful. Now, if you all want that radio out of there, you just go on and take it from him. But I won't go back up there anymore. We got to have it your way or else that... Reverend Ambrose cut in. No, I said. You can have it your way. You could take it from him. But you won't reach him if you do. The only thing that keeps him from thinking he is not a hog is that radio. Take that radio away and let's see what you can do for the soul of a hog. Then I'm the one that's not needed, the minister said. No, Miss Emma said. You have to go, Reverend Ambrose. I'll make him see. You saw today how he was, the minister said. He can't hear me through that wall of sin. I'll make him see, Miss Emma said. He needs you. Maybe he don't know it yet, but he needs you. Maybe you don't know it yet either, Grant. All I know, Miss Emma, is that last Friday was the first time I reached him, I said. It was the first time he didn't call himself a hog. And that whole gallon of ice cream, the minister said. You sure you reached him? I didn't know how to answer that. Well, Mr. Teacher, Reverend Ambrose said, I'm waiting for your answer. My aunt and Miss Emma were also waiting. I went back to see Jefferson again on Wednesday. On Tuesday, I had asked the children at the school to bring large pecans and roasted peanuts for me to take to him. Some brought pecans in paper bags, some brought them in little flour and rice sacks, others brought them in their pockets. There were about 25 pounds of pecans, about half that many pounds of roasted peanuts. I took a few pounds of each and left the rest to be distributed among the children after school. In Bayonne, I bought a half-dozen apples, some candy, and 2 or 3 comic books. You did not hear the music until you got near the cell. He was lying on his bunk, the little radio on the floor at his head. Paul let me in and left. How's it going, partner? I said. The children sent you some pecans and peanuts. I bought you some apples and a couple candy bars, some funny books. He let his feet slide to the floor as he sat up on the bunk. I stood there a while, then I sat down at the foot of the bunk and handed him the bag. He took it without saying anything and set it on the floor. The radio was still playing. Doing all right? I asked him. He sat there staring at the wall in front of him, his big hands clasped together. He nodded his head. How's the radio? I asked him. All right. Did you get Randy over the weekend? Yeah, I caught him. I listened to him a little bit myself, I said. You didn't have any trouble getting a station, did you? No, I got him all right, he said. We were quiet. He stared at the concrete wall. The radio was playing Western music on a station out of Baton Rouge. You want to ask me anything? He shook his head. I waited a moment until I thought it was a good time to speak. I saw your Nanin the other day after she came back from seeing you, Jefferson. She said you didn't have dinner with them in the day room. They had come here and they couldn't sit down. He didn't say anything. When they come back, can you meet them in there, Jefferson? She needs that. All right. You'll do it for me? For her? I asked. All right. She would love that, Jefferson. And Reverend Ambrose, will you let him talk to you? All right. I didn't know anything else to talk about, and he had nothing to say, so we just sat there quietly a while. Jefferson, I said finally, I want to be your friend. I want you to ask me questions. I want you to say anything that comes to your mind, anything you want to say to me. I don't care what it is. Say it. I'll keep it to myself if you want. I'll talk about it to other people if you want. Will you do that for me? He nodded his head. He was staring at the wall. I just thought of something, I said. Sometimes at night, sometimes when you're thinking about something and may not be able to remember it when I come back, I was just thinking maybe I could bring you a little notebook and a pencil. You could write your thoughts down and we could talk about it when I came back. Or maybe you could talk to Reverend Ambrose about it when he came to visit you. Would you like that? All right. You want me to bring it? If you want. And you would write down your thoughts? Anything you want to talk about? He nodded his head, but he was still looking at the wall. Do you believe I'm your friend, Jefferson? I asked him. Do you believe I care about you? He didn't answer. Jefferson? But he was not listening. I looked around the cell, at the seatless brown-stained commode, the washbowl whose faucet never stopped dripping, the little metal shelf over the bowl, which held his pan, tin cup, and spoon. Through the barred window I could see the branches of the sycamore tree stirring from a soft breeze. There was still a chill in the air, and Jefferson wore one of my heavy wool shirts. On the floor, the little radio had been playing one Western song after another. You like that country stuff, huh? It don't matter. Me, I go for Randy, I said. I like those low-down blues. I heard someone opening the big steel door at the other end of the cell block, and as he came down the aisle, I could hear Paul speaking to the prisoners. Well, I guess I'll be taking off, I said. Anything you want me to tell you, Nanan? I had stood. Now he looked up at me. There was no hate in his face, but Lord, there was pain. I could see that he wanted to say something, but it was hard for him to do. I stood over him waiting. Tell the cheering thank you for the pecans, he stammered. I caught myself grinning like a fool. I wanted to throw my arms around him and hug him. I wanted to hug the first person I came to. I felt like someone who had just found religion. I felt like crying with joy. I really did. I held out my hand. He raised his. A big hand, but with no grip. Cool, dead weight. I squeezed his hand with both of mine. I must have had that grin still on my face when Paul opened the door to let me out. Everything's okay? He asked. Yes, I said. Chapter 24. Miss Emma thought we should all visit Jefferson together as often as we could. I wasn't crazy about the idea of being at the courthouse at the same time as the minister, but one look from my aunt, and I decided that I would go along at least once. Leaving Irene Cole and Odessa Freeman in charge of the classes, I drove to Bayonne with a bag of pecans and peanuts. I remembered my promise to Jefferson, so I dropped by the drugstore for a notebook and a pencil. It was a little after 2 when I got to the courthouse. The minister, Miss Emma, and my aunt were waiting for me outside. They stood by the minister's car, near the statue of the Confederate soldier and the 3 flags. The flags hung limp beneath the overcast sky. The minister and my aunt looked at me, and both seemed angry, as if I had kept them waiting deliberately. I had not, of course. If I had not stopped for the notebook and pencil, I probably would have arrived there before they did, but I did not explain this to them. Miss Emma did not feel the same as they did, and that was all that mattered. Both she and my aunt carried food baskets covered with dish towels. As I approached them, Miss Emma pushed herself away from the car and started heavily toward the entrance to the courthouse. My aunt and the minister walked behind her, and I followed. Paul was not there, and the chief deputy, after searching the food and us, led us out of the office into the corridor. He walked several paces ahead of us, as if we were not with him. When we came to the restroom marked white men, he went inside. We waited for him along the wall. 5 minutes later, he came out with another white man. They stood there talking another minute or 2 before he continued along the corridor. We went up the steps and into the day room, and without a word, he opened the door and left us. Miss Emma and my aunt spread out a tablecloth on the table. Then they placed a pan, a spoon, and a paper napkin in 5 places. After they had set up everything, they and the minister sat down, but I remained standing. The first thing you heard were the chains around his ankles. Then Jefferson entered the room through the rear door, followed by the deputy. Jefferson wore the same brown wool shirt he'd had on a couple of days before. He had on a pair of faded denims and brogans with no laces. He was dragging his feet to keep the shoes on. "Here he is," the deputy said. "See y'all at 3. "Paul's not here today?" I asked. "Mr. Paul's got other duties," the deputy said. He looked at me as if to remind me that I was supposed to say Mr. before a white man's name. He stood there eyeing me until he felt I understood. "I brought you some good old gumbo," Miss Emma said to Jefferson. "How's it going, partner?" I said, as I took my seat beside him. "All right," he said. "The radio still playing?" He nodded his head. "Good," I said. Miss Emma put rice in each pan. Then she poured gumbo over the rice until the pan was nearly full. Besides shrimps, she had put smoked sausage and chicken in the gumbo, and she had seasoned it well with green onions, filet, and black pepper. Gumbo was something you could always eat, even if you were not hungry. I started in, but I was the only one, and I soon realized why. "May we bow our heads," the minister said, after I had put down my spoon. Jefferson's head had been bowed from the moment he sat down. I lowered my eyes. "Our Father, who art in heaven," Reverend Ambrose began. He went through the Lord's Prayer, but that was only for warming up. Then he really got down to praying. He asked God to come down to Bayonne, and to the courthouse, and to the jail, walk along the cell block, go into each cell, touch each heart. Come into this room and touch the hearts of those here who did not know him in the pardon of their sins. As he prayed, the minister would slump closer and closer to the table. Then he would jerk his head up and gaze at the ceiling. Miss Emma and my aunt responded with "Amen, amen, amen." But Jefferson was quiet, and so was I. Whether or not he was listening, I don't know, but all I was thinking about was the gumbo getting cold. Finally, Reverend Ambrose brought his prayer sermon to an end, begging God to bless the gift on the table, which was there to nourish our bodies so that we might do his bidding. Everyone responded with "Amen," except Jefferson. I started eating. The gumbo was warm but not hot. "Ain't you gonna eat, Jefferson?" Miss Emma said. "Ain't hungry." Miss Emma was not eating either, but the minister and my aunt and I were. I broke off a piece of bread from one of the loaves that Miss Emma had baked. I didn't look at her. I didn't want to see her face. "The children sent you some more pecans and peanuts," I said to Jefferson. "Did you eat the others I brought you?" "Some," he said. "The peanuts too?" "Few," he said, his head down. "I brought you that notebook and that pencil," I said. "Do you remember what we talked about?" He nodded shortly. "Have you been thinking of questions to ask me?" He nodded again. "Do you want to ask me now?" He didn't say anything. I finished my pan of gumbo. "There's more there, Grant," Miss Emma said. "No, ma'am, that was good," I said, glancing at her. I didn't want to look at her too long. I knew what I would find in her face, and I didn't want to see it. "You want to walk?" I said to Jefferson. He moved on the bench without answering. You could hear the chains around his ankles as he swung his legs over the bench. Then he braced his cuffed hands against the table to push himself up. We started walking around the room. Miss Emma watched us. My aunt and the minister went on eating, but they did not seem to be enjoying their food. "Jefferson, I want us to be friends," I said. "Not only you and me, but I want you to be friends with your Nanan. I want you to be more than a godson to her. A godson obeys, but a friend, well, a friend would do anything to please a friend." We were passing by the table, so I lowered my voice. Jefferson shuffled along beside me, his cuffed hands hanging below his waist, his shoulders too close together, his head down. "A friend does a lot of little things," I went on. "It would mean so much to her if you would eat some of the gumbo. I stopped when we came to the corner of the room. He stopped too, his head still down. "Look at me, Jefferson, please," I said. He raised his head slowly. I smiled at him. "Will you be her friend? Will you eat some of the gumbo? Just a little bit. 1 spoonful?" He made a slight nod. I smiled at him again. "Jefferson," I said. We had started walking. "Do you know what a hero is, Jefferson? A hero is someone who does something for other people. He does something that other men don't and can't do. He is different from other men. He is above other men. No matter who those other men are, the hero, no matter who he is above them." I lowered my voice again until we had passed the table. "I could never be a hero. I teach, but I don't like teaching. I teach because it's the only thing that an educated black man can do in the South today. I don't like it. I hate it. I don't even like living here. I want to run away. I want to live for myself and for my woman and for nobody else. That is not a hero. A hero does for others. He would do anything for people he loves because he knows it would make their lives better. I am not that kind of person, but I want you to be. You could give something to her, to me, to those children in the quarter. You could give them something that I never could. They expect it from me, but not from you. The white people out there are saying that you don't have it. You're a hog, not a man. But I know they are wrong. You have the potentials. We all have, no matter who we are. Those out there are no better than we are, Jefferson. They are worse. That's why they're always looking for a scapegoat, someone else to blame. I want you to show them the difference between what they think you are and what you can be. To them, you're nothing but another nigger. No dignity, no heart, no love for your people. You can prove them wrong. You can do more than I can ever do. I've always done what they wanted me to do: teach, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Nothing else. Nothing about dignity, nothing about identity, nothing about loving and caring. They never thought we were capable of learning these things. Teach those niggers how to print their names and how to figure on their fingers, and I went along, but hating myself all the time for doing so. We were coming up to the table again, and the ones at the table were quiet and trying to hear what we were saying. I did not start talking again until we had passed them. "Do you know what a myth is, Jefferson?" I asked him. A myth is an old lie that people believe in. White people believe that they are better than anyone else on earth, and that's a myth. The last thing they ever want is to see a black man stand and think and show that common humanity that is in us all. It would destroy their myth. They would no longer have justification for having made us slaves and keeping us in the condition we are in. As long as none of us stand, they're safe. They're safe with me. They're safe with Reverend Ambrose. I don't want them to feel safe with you anymore. I want you to chip away at that myth by standing. I want you, yes, you, to call them liars. I want you to show them that you're as much a man, more a man than they can ever be. That jury? You call them men? That judge, is he a man? The governor is no better. They play by the rules their forefathers created hundreds of years ago. Their forefathers said that we're only 3/5 human, and they believe it to this day. Sheriff Guidry does too. He calls me professor, but he doesn't mean it. He calls Reverend Ambrose Reverend, but he doesn't respect him. When I showed him the notebook and pencil I brought you, he grinned. Do you know why? He believes it was just a waste of time and money. What can a hog do with a pencil and paper? We stopped. His head was down. "Look at me, Jefferson, please," I said. He raised his head. He had been crying. He raised his cuffed hands and wiped one eye, then the other. "I need you," I told him. "I need you much more than you could ever need me. I need to know what to do with my life. I want to run away, but go where and do what? I'm needed here and I know it, but I feel that all I'm doing here is choking myself. I need someone to tell me what to do. I need you to tell me, to show me. I'm no hero. I can just give something small. That's all I have to offer. It is the only way that we can chip away at the myth. You can be bigger than anyone you have ever met. Please listen to me, because I would not lie to you now. I speak from my heart. You have the chance of being bigger than anyone who has ever lived on that plantation or come from this little town. You can do it if you try. You have seen how Mr. Farrell makes a slingshot handle. He starts with just a little piece of rough wood, any little piece of scrap wood. Then he starts cutting and cutting and cutting, then shaving. Shaves it down clean and smooth till it's not what it was before, but something new and pretty. You know what I'm talking about because you have seen him do it. You had one that he made from a piece of scrap wood. Yes, I saw you with it. And it came from a piece of old wood that he found in a yard somewhere. And that's all we are, Jefferson, all of us on this earth, a piece of drifting wood, until we, each one of us, individually, decide to become something else. I am still that piece of drifting wood, and those out there are no better. But you can be better, because we need you to be and want you to be. Me, your godmother, the children, and all the rest of them in the quarter. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, Jefferson? Do you? He looked at me in great pain. He may not have understood, but something was touched, something deep down in him, because he was still crying. I cry, not from reaching any conclusion by reasoning, but because, lowly as I am still part of the whole. Is that what he was thinking as he looked at me crying? Come on, I said, let's have some gumbo. And we went back to the table. Chapter 25. Reverend Ambrose, my aunt, and Miss Emma returned to the quarter, and I went back of town to the Rainbow Club. The place was in semi-darkness as usual, with 3 old men at the bar, doing more talking than drinking, and only 2 other people in the place, a couple of mulatto bricklayers, sitting at a table. I had come here to tell Vivian that everything had gone well. Jefferson and I were communicating, and he and his Nanin were also talking. I was feeling very good, and I wanted to tell it to her before I told it to anyone else. How he and I had gone back to the table, and how we had eaten the gumbo though it was cold, and how his Nanin was so proud. I wanted to tell her that. I did not wish to tell her about the envy I had seen in the minister's face. No, I would not say that the minister felt I was controlling Jefferson's life, and that he, the minister, thought that since Jefferson had only a short time left to live, it should be he in control and not I. No, I didn't want to say that to her. I only wanted to talk about things that made me feel good. The look on his Nanin's face, the look on my aunt's face, the way Jefferson raised a spoonful of gumbo and rice to his mouth with both hands, and dipped the spoon again, and raised it to his mouth because I had asked him to do it. That's what I wanted to talk about. About how he picked up the bag of pecans and peanuts, and the bag with the tablet and pencil when the deputy came to the table to take him back to his cell. And though he did not walk as straight as I wished he would, the fact that he was carrying the notepad and the pencil made up for it. I wanted to talk about that to Vivian, not about the minister, his envy, the way he looked when Jefferson and I had come back to the table. Sure, he was happy to see that Sister Emma was happy, but it was not he who had made her so, and he did not like that. Sin, or the sinner, had done this, not he. I wanted, too, to talk about how Jefferson's Nanin looked at him, as he ate the gumbo she had cooked especially for him, and about how he said goodbye when he had to go. That was what I wanted to talk about. It was near 3:30 when I got to the Rainbow Club, and I had thought that, by now, Vivian would be there with some of her teaching friends. Since she was not, I thought I would have a drink or two till she showed up. I could hear the mulatto bricklayers talking over in the corner. I was in a very good mood. At least I thought I was. And at first I wasn't paying much attention to what they were saying. I could hear them well enough, but I had no idea that they were speaking for my benefit. I had ordered a bourbon and water from Claiborne, and I was sipping it slowly and thinking about Vivian and about Jefferson. Things had not been going too well for Vivian and me in bed, and I knew it was because of Jefferson, my worrying about him. Between him and school, I was drained of my energy. Vivian knew that too, and she was ready to accept it, much more than I was. She knew how it had been before, and she knew how it would be again, and she told me not to worry about it. But that was not enough for me. I did worry. I didn't think anything in the world was worth us not being able to make it well in bed. Nothing. And that was one of the reasons I had come back here to see her, to tell her that I had finally reached him, and that I would be more relaxed now, and that it was going to be all right between her and me from now on. The two brick-colored bricklayers were still talking over in the corner, and for a long time I didn't pay their conversation any close attention. I heard the word nigger a few times, and I heard the words, should have been done long ago, but I never made the connection. After I finished my first drink, I nodded for Claiborne to come down the bar, and now Claiborne heard them too. Maybe they wanted him to hear. Maybe they wanted him to hear so he would say something to me. Maybe. But all Claiborne did was serve me another drink, glance at them a couple of times, and go back to where the three old men were doing much more talking than drinking. I went on sipping from my second drink and thinking about Vivian and Jefferson. I was wondering what Vivian had worn today, and how her hair was combed, and how she would look when she came into the place. I was thinking about that, and about Jefferson and what he would write on the notepad, questions or comments. I was wondering what his handwriting would look like, and whether I would have the nerve to question him about anything I did not understand. These are the things I was thinking while the two bricklayers went on talking over in the corner. Down the bar, I saw Claiborne glancing their way again. He could not hear them now, but he had heard them when he was serving me, and he knew I could be listening. There was a tall one and there was a short, fat one. The tall one was doing most of the talking, and I could tell he was angry. Maybe it was over his job. I had seen both of them before without being friendly, and I knew that like so many of the mulattoes in this part of the state, they did bricklaying or carpentry and possibly some house painting, all this by contract. And all this to keep from working in the field side by side with the niggers. Since emancipation, almost 100 years ago, they would do any kind of work they could find to keep from working side by side in the field with the niggers. They controlled most of the bricklaying business in this part of the state, even took that kind of work from the white boys, because they would do it so much cheaper than the white boys would. Anything not to work alongside the niggers. With school, it was the same. Many of them would drop out of school, would get a trade, bricklayer or carpenter, rather than sit in class side by side with the niggers. Their sisters went to high school and college, but they would not. Rather take a trade than sit next to the niggers. And those two who were talking now were of that way of thinking. Dumb as hell, but prejudiced as hell. They had no other place to go to do their drinking. They would not dare go to any of the white clubs, so they would come here and bring their prejudiced attitude with them. They would keep it down when there were several blacks in the place, but with only me and the three old men standing at the bar today, they felt pretty safe. "Should have burned him months ago," one said. I figured it was the tall one, because out of the corner of my eye I had seen that he was doing most of the talking. "That kind of son of a bitch make it hard on everybody," he went on. "I'd pull the switch myself, they asked me." I knew now what they were talking about, and who they were talking about, but I told myself to keep it cool. Let them talk. They were probably out of work, and it was just plain frustration that made them go on like that. Just cool it, I told myself. You just cool it now. But when I looked down the bar, I could see that Claiborne was listening to them too. And even the old men had looked back once or twice. So now we were all hearing them, but I could hear them better because I was closer to their table. And the old Forester was not doing anything to keep me from listening. It was helping me listen. That's the way it is with booze. It gives and takes. It keeps you from doing what you're supposed to do well in bed, and other times it makes you listen to things you should not listen to, like now. Let them talk, I said again to myself. If you can't stand here and take it, then get into your car and leave. Go somewhere else and get a drink. He's got only a few more weeks, and you have to do all you can for him, for all the others. You came here in a good mood because this is one of the best days you have had with him, and you can't let this kind of trash destroy that good feeling, so don't, all right? I finished the drink and sucked on an ice cube as I rolled the glass around in the palms of my hands. I raised the glass for the last drop before setting it on the bar. I turned around slowly and looked at them, the tall one with the cowboy hat and the short fat one with the baseball cap turned backward on his head. All I was going to do was lean back against the bar a moment, then I was going to walk out. They knew I was looking at them, and they were quiet a moment. Then the tall one said something and the fat one snickered, and I thought I had heard enough. I went up to their table. "Shut up." "What?" the tall one said. "You heard me. I said shut up." He grinned at me. "You don't mean that." "You shut up or get up," I said. "I mean that." He looked at his buddy, then back at me, and the hatred in those light brown eyes was thick enough to cut with a cane knife. He grinned. "Fine with me, partner." He braced himself against the table to stand up, but he was getting up with too much confidence, and I hit him before he had a chance to protect himself, and down he went over the back of that chair. Just as I expected, old Fat Boy jumped up too, and I caught him in the face with the side of my fist, and I saw him fall back and throw his hand up to his mouth. I got my back to the wall so I could keep both of them in front of me. I don't know whether Claiborne came over the bar, under the bar, or around the bar, but he was there now, and he had grabbed the fat one, and he was hollering for me and the other one to cut it out. "Not in here," he was hollering. "Not in here, goddammit." The tall one was up, and he was trying to move in on me, and when I saw that Claiborne had grabbed Fat Boy, I moved away from the wall with my guard up. Claiborne was wrestling with the fat one, but hollering at us. The tall one kept coming in on me. Then he swung, and I moved, and he went into the wall. His back was to me, but I didn't hit him. Not that I'm a gentleman fighter. I didn't hit him because he was between the wall and the table, and if I had moved in close enough to hit him, I would not have had room to move around. He came off that wall, and he swung at me again. Not with his fist first, but with both arms at once, just as Frankenstein had done it in the movies. He missed. But I could feel the force of his swing, even his body heat, and I knew that if nobody stopped this thing, I was in for a fight. He was taller and heavier and stronger than I, and he had 3 or 4 generations of bricklaying genes in him, while I had only cane cutting in mine. Out of the corner of my eye, I could still see Claiborne wrestling with the fat one, while continuing to holler at me and the tall one to stop. But since the tall one was not paying any attention to him, I wasn't about to drop my guard. He swung at me again, and I went under his arm and struck him in the side with all I had, but it seemed as if I had hit a wall. I told myself, "Partner, you got your work cut out for you. He doesn't know how to fight, but he's strong as a mule." He came back, and this time he landed. Not his fist, his arm. And I thought it was chicken shit of him to hit me with an arm and not a fist, as a man should hit a man, but I was thinking this from the floor. I don't know what was going on in his mind, but he was standing over me as though he was waiting for me to get up before hitting me again. I kicked him in the shin, he fell back, and I got to my feet. He was right on me again, and he swung. I went under it and intentionally caught him below the belt. He buckled over, grabbing at his nuts with both hands. I moved in, and he started swinging with the one arm to ward me off. I hit him twice, hard. He kept swinging with one arm, the other hand holding on to his nuts. His face showed pain, but he would not stop. He would not go down. Those 3 or 4 generations of bricklaying genes, his hatred of the black-white blood in him, and his plain frustration with life would not let him go down. Thelma Claiborne and several others were in the barroom now, and Thelma had a broom. I felt the broom on my back, then I saw it flash in front of me as she swung it at the bricklayer. Then it was hitting something else. Maybe the other bricklayer, maybe her husband, because I heard Claiborne saying, "God damn it, go find Vivian. Put that goddamn thing down, woman, and do like I say." I could hear all this, but I wasn't about to turn my head, because the tall bricklayer was still on his feet. He was insane now, like a wounded animal in pain, and nothing could stop him. I kept moving back, maneuvering, so that I could land a good punch when he came in. I felt something heavy and soft behind me, and as I glanced around at Thelma, with that damn broom, the bricklayer hit me solidly on the arm, and down I went. I never felt so much pain before, and I knew that there was no way I was going to get up, that I was going to die there. I was on my knees, and I was sure that the next feeling, my last, would be a shoe under my chin or in my side. I was waiting for it to happen, the way a condemned man must wait that last hundredth of a second for the guillotine to fall. But it never did, because Thelma, with her broom, got between us. He was too much of a gentleman to knock her out of the way, or maybe he realized that such a thing would bar him from the place forever. Whatever it was, it gave me time to get to my feet. "Boxing is over," I said, and I grabbed a chair and threw it at him. He grabbed it and threw it back at me. I grabbed another one. Above all the noise those chairs were making, I could hear Claiborne. "Go find that woman. Schoolhouse. Children playing yard." He was saying all this between sounds of something hitting the wall, something like flesh and bone and a baseball cap turned backward. I was hearing this. I wasn't really seeing it. Because the tall bricklayer still had a chair, and so did I, and Thelma had a broom, and it was hitting me on the head, the bricklayer on the shoulder, me in the side, the bricklayer in the chest. Claiborne and the fat boy fell down on the floor and scrambled back up, and I heard Claiborne, "Gusta, Gilly, y'all can't hear neither? Gusta, crank your old ass up and go find that woman. Gilly, find my gun. Won't listen to reason, they'll listen to lead." This was said between the thumping of flesh and bone and a baseball cap turned backward, blows followed by groans, and Claiborne saying, "No, you ain't got enough yet." While the tall bricklayer and I kept trying to find an opening with those chairs so we could kill each other, I heard a solid, mean crunching sound and a deep groan, followed by something heavy falling from the ceiling or pushed violently forward to the floor. I heard Claiborne screaming for the tall bricklayer and me to stop, and I heard Thelma plead, "Don't do it!" That was the last thing I heard. After that it was dark, completely dark. One moment, as I remember it, the bricklayer and I were circling each other with chairs. The next moment, absolute darkness. The darkness came at the exact moment as a blow to the side of my head. I could hear a voice before I knew who was talking or where I was. Then I began to think I knew the voice, but I was not absolutely sure. Then I began to think I knew where I was, but I was not sure about that either. Then I began definitely to identify the voice, though still not sure where I was. Then I was able to see and feel, and I knew the voice, because she was down on the floor with me and holding my head in her lap. "He's all right," Vivian said. "Get him out of here," Claiborne said. "Are you all right?" Vivian asked. "Hi, honey," I said. "Are you all right?" Vivian asked. "I'm okay. Can you stand up?" I tried to nod my head. "Get him out of here," Claiborne said. "You all right, honey?" Vivian said. "I'm all right." "Get him out of here," Claiborne said. "I don't give a shit if he's all right or not. For you know it, the law'll be here. Get him out of here." "Can you stand up, honey?" Vivian asked again. "I can stand up." "Come on, stand up for me, honey," Vivian said. "I can stand up," I said. "Damn it, I can stand up." "He can stand up," Vivian said. "See, he's standing up now. Come on, honey." Chapter 26. What happened? Claiborne knocked you out. Why did Claiborne knock me out? You wouldn't stop fighting. Did he knock him out too? No. Well, why didn't he knock him out? He quit. Claiborne told him he would shoot his head off if he didn't, and he quit. You wouldn't. I didn't hear Claiborne say anything like that to me. That's what he told me. Said he knocked Griffin out first. You were the next one closest to him. He hollered at you to stop, kept hollering at you, and you went on swinging that chair. So he just came up behind you and knocked you out. With that gun? That's all he had in his hand when I got there. Poor Mr. Gusta running up and down the street calling my name. Come stop you, come stop you. I'm sorry, honey. No, you're not sorry. I just couldn't help it. Yes, you could. I couldn't. You could have walked out of there. Can Jefferson walk out of where he is? We were sitting on her bed. There were matching lamps with matching shades on either side of the bed. The shades were pink with little white tassels. A chifforobe was in the room, and there were a soft chair and a dresser. I could see us, me and her, in the mirror above the dresser. I had a wet towel on the top of my head, and my left hand was holding the towel in place. I didn't look too good, and I felt even worse. Vivian sighed. Well, I guess that's that, she said. That's what, honey? You'll have to stay here tonight. What for? Because you're in no condition to go home. I'm all right, I said. I'll be all right in a minute. I'm calling Dora. Let her keep the children. Don't do that, honey, please. She's kept them before. Honey, I don't want you in any trouble. Well, you should have thought about that at the Rainbow Club, she said. They were talking about Jefferson, honey. What would you have done? I would have walked out of there. No, you would not. You would have said something. Maybe that's what you should have done instead of swinging that chair. Vivian, what about your marriage? What about the school? All they can do is fire me. Maybe he'll take the children. But you weren't thinking about that, she said. I'm going to leave. I don't want you in any trouble. I'm already in trouble. Miss DeGusta running up and down the street calling my name. Come quick, come quick. And me leading you by the hand out of a barroom fight. What do you call that? I don't want you in any deeper trouble. I tried to stand up, but my head felt as if it would burst open, and I sat down on the bed again. I'll leave in a few minutes, I said. If I can't drive, I'll call somebody to take me home. You're not going anywhere, she said. I'm calling Dora to keep the children. I have some red beans and rice back there, a couple of fried pork chops. I'm not hungry, I said. Well, I am. Don't be mad, honey. I'm not mad, just disgusted. I had to do it, honey. I had to. I just couldn't take it anymore. That's how you all get yourselves killed. I didn't start it. Maybe you didn't, but you were ready. It's been all that other stuff, the jail, the preacher, all of that. She got up from the bed. I'm going to warm the food, she said. I'll be in the kitchen. Don't be mad, honey, please. She didn't answer. She went into the living room, and I heard her on the telephone speaking to Dora. Then I heard her hang up the telephone and go into the kitchen. I sat on the bed with my head bowed and my left hand holding the towel in place. I didn't dare look in the mirror again. I glanced over my shoulder toward the window on the other side of the bed, and I could see through the curtain that it was nearly dark outside. I got up from the bed and went through the living room and back into the kitchen. I could smell the red beans warming on the stove. I couldn't smell the rice. You don't smell rice unless it's burning, and I didn't smell the pork chops either. Vivian was at the sink making a salad. I went up to her and put my right arm around her waist while my left hand held the towel on my head. What are you doing, honey? She knew I could see what she was doing, so she didn't answer me. Still mad, huh? I'm not mad. You still love me? She didn't answer. I kissed her on the jaw. She went on making the salad. Do you want to know what happened today, honey? I already know what happened today, she said. At the jail, I mean. She went on with her salad. Now she was slicing up a cucumber to add to the lettuce and tomato. It went well today, honey. It went very well. He and I walked around the room while I talked to him. Then we ate. His nanny was so proud. I brought him the pencil and notepad I told you about. It went good today, honey. Aren't you proud? She put the sliced cucumber into the bowl with the cut-up tomato and the lettuce. Then she added oil and vinegar. She took the salad to the table. She dished up the rice and spread red beans over the rice and placed a pork chop on each plate. She brought the 2 plates to the table and sat down. I sat opposite her. You want me to ask the blessing, honey? She didn't answer. I bowed my head and made the sign of the cross and asked God to bless the food. I looked up at her and started eating. She was not eating. Still mad, huh? I'm just thinking, she said. I ate and looked at her. I heard from him, she said. He won't give me a divorce unless he can see his children every weekend. My head started throbbing again. When did you hear from him? Yesterday. I was going to tell you today when I saw you. He's still in Texas? Yes. And I suppose he has heard about us. I suppose so. And that's to keep us from going away. I suppose so. That son of a bitch, I said. All of a sudden he needs to see his children every weekend. I put down my fork. I didn't feel like eating anymore. I'm going to leave, I said. You don't have to. I don't want to give him any more fuel to work with. Suit yourself. Don't you think that's best? It doesn't matter, she said. We get hurt no matter what happens. She picked at her food, but she didn't eat. I sat there looking at her. I need you, honey, I told her. I need you to stand with me. He's got only a few more weeks. I need you now more than ever. She didn't answer. She held the fork in her hand, but she did not bring it up to her mouth. Well, I better go, I said. She didn't look at me. Honey, suppose someone said something about you. Would you want me to just walk away? Again, nothing from her. Honey, you have anything in here to drink? I asked her. Bottle in that cabinet, she said. Honey, you gonna fix me a drink? She didn't move. I got up from the table and got the bottle of Old Forester out of the cabinet. It was 3/4 full. You want one, honey? No. I poured myself a double, then I added some water from the pitcher in the refrigerator. Still mad, huh? I said after I sat down. Never was mad, just disgusted. About the same thing, I said. I'll finish my drink and leave. That's up to you. I love you, honey, and I need you, but I'm only human. One day I'll bring flowers to the graveyard, she said. It's not you talking, honey. No, she said, looking up at me. She had been holding it in a long time, and now she was going to let it out. I saw it coming as soon as I spoke. What is me? She said. Tell me, what is me? Honey, no. Tell me, she said. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Tell me. All I know is I love you, I said. That's not enough, she said. What is love? Honey, what is it? She asked. That bed? That's love? Honey, please. No. Give me some answers. Give me some answers. Today. Today I want answers. Honey, I love you. That's no answer. I don't know what you mean by love. That bed? The cane field? What is love? Tell me what love is. I didn't know what to say. Nothing I would say was going to change anything. I'll leave, I said. Sure, that's the easy way out. Leave. Well, what do you want? What the hell do you want from me? What the hell do you all want from me? I don't know what the others want. I just want something I don't have. I've done my best, I said. No, you have not, she said. In bed for a few moments is not enough. Is that all I've ever given you? Is that all? What else? Any consideration? I got up from the table. I jerked the towel from my head and slammed it down on my plate. You can have your goddamn red beans and rice and towel and everything else. Damn this shit. I went to the front door and jerked it open, and there was the screen. And through the screen I could see outside into the darkness, and I didn't want to go out there. There was nothing outside this house that I cared for. Not school, not home, not my aunt, not the quarter, not anything else in the world. I don't know how long I stood there looking out into the darkness. A couple of minutes, I suppose. Then I went back into the kitchen. I knelt down and buried my face in her lap. Chapter 27. After church, the minister came back to the house with my aunt, Miss Eloise, Miss Emma, and Inez for coffee and cake. I lay across the bed in my room, looking out the window at the stack of bean poles in the garden. As far back as I could remember, my aunt would pull up the rows of poles at the end of each season and stack them in that same corner of the garden, until a new crop of beans was ready to be polled. Beyond the poles, on the other side of the road, I could see the tops of the pecan trees in Farrell Giroux's backyard. The trees had begun to bud again. The buds looked black from this distance. I could see above the trees how heavy, low, and gray the sky was. I had intended to go for a drive, but I was afraid it might rain while I was gone, making the road too muddy for me to drive back down the quarter. Anyway, I had work to do. But as usual, I ended up doing only a little because of the singing and praying up at the church. After Tant Lou and her company had been at the house a while, she came into my room. "You sleep?" she asked. "I'm awake." "Reverend Ambrose liked to talk to you." "What about?" I lay on my back, gazing up at the ceiling, my hands clasped behind my head so that my arms stuck out, forming a cross. "I done told you that's bad luck," my aunt said. Without shifting my eyes from the ceiling, I unclasped my hands from behind my head and clasped them on my chest. Tant Lou stood there looking at me. "He can come in?" "Sure, he can come in." "You gonna put on your shoes and tuck in that shirt?" she asked. "I'll put on my shoes and tuck in my shirt," I said. She stood there watching me a while, then she left the room. I sat up on the bed and passed my hands over my face. When the minister came into the room, I had tucked in my shirt and put on my shoes, and I was standing at the window looking out at the garden. My aunt had prepared a half-dozen rows about 30 feet long for spring planting. She would start her planting the week after Easter if the ground was dry enough. The minister stood behind me, and I turned from the window to look at him. "Care to sit down, Reverend?" There were only 2 chairs in the room, the one at my desk and a rocker by the fireplace. "You gonna sit down?" he asked me. "I don't mind standing." He looked at my desk. "I see you been working." I tried to. Afraid I didn't get much done. He sat down in the chair and looked up at me. "They learning anything?" "I do my best, Reverend." He nodded his bald head. "I do the same. My best." My back to the window, I waited to hear what he wanted to talk to me about. He looked down at his hands and rubbed them together. For a man his size, he had really big hands. He rubbed them again before raising his eyes to me. "There ain't much time." "Jefferson?" "Yes." 3 weeks. "Not quite." "Minus a couple of days," I said. He nodded his head. A small, tired little man. He had preached a long sermon today, and it showed in his face. "He ain't saved." "I can't help you there, Reverend." "That's where you're wrong. He listened to you." I turned my back on him and looked out on the garden. "You ever think of anybody else but yourself?" I didn't answer him. "I ask you, you ever think of anybody but yourself?" "I have my work to do, Reverend. You have yours," I said, without looking around at him. "Mine is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Yours is saving souls." "He don't need no more reading, writing, and arithmetic." "That's where you come in, Reverend." I stared beyond the garden toward the budding pecan trees in Farrell Giroux's backyard. The sky was so low the trees seemed nearly to touch it. "When you going back?" Reverend Ambrose asked behind me. "I don't know. One day next week, I suppose." "And what you gonna talk about?" "I don't know, Reverend." "I'm going back with Sister Emma tomorrow. I'm gonna talk about God." "I'm sure he needs to hear that, Reverend." You sure?" "Maybe not. Maybe I'm not sure about anything." "I know I'm sure," he said. Yes, I know, I'm sure. I looked out at the newly turned rows of earth, and I wished I could just lie down between the rows and not hear and not be a part of any of this. This a mean world, but there is a better one. I wish to prepare him for that better world, but I need your help. I don't believe in that other world, Reverend. Don't believe in God? I believe in God, Reverend, I said, looking beyond the rows of turned-up earth toward the budding pecan trees across the road. I believe in God. Every day of my life, I believe in God. Just not that other world. I didn't answer him. And how could they go on? You ever thought about that? I looked at the buds on the trees, and I did not answer him. Well, he said to my back. I turned from the window and looked at him where he sat at my desk. School papers, notebooks, textbooks, and pencils were spread out on the table behind him. She told me to help him walk to that chair like a man, not like a hog. And I'm doing the best I can, Reverend. The rest is up to you. He got up from the chair and came toward me. He peered at me intently, his face showing pain and confusion. He stopped at arm's distance from me, and I could smell in his clothes the sweat from his preaching. You think you're educated? I went to college. But what did you learn? To teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, Reverend. What did you learn about your own people? What did you learn about her around there? He said, gesturing toward the other room and trying to keep his voice down. I didn't answer him. No. You not educated, boy, he said, shaking his head. You far from being educated. You learned your reading, writing, and arithmetic, but you don't know nothing. You don't even know yourself. Well, you're doing the talking, Reverend. An educated boy, he said, thumping his chest. I'm the one that's educated. I know people like you look down on people like me, but he touched his chest again. I'm the one that's educated. He stared at me as if he could not make up his mind whether to hit me or scream. Grief, oh grief, he muffled his cry. When will you cease? Oh, when? He drew a deep breath, then he began to speak faster. When they had nothing else but grief, where was the release? None till he rose. And he said, there's relief from grief across yon river. And she believed, and there was relief from grief. Do you know what I'm trying to say to you, boy? I hear you talking, Reverend. You hear me talking. But are you listening? No, you ain't listening. His eyes examined me, from the top of my head to my chest, and I could see the rage in his face, see his mouth trembling. He was doing all he could to control his voice so that the others back in the kitchen would not hear him. I won't let you send that boy so to hell, he said. I'll fight you with all the strength I have left in his body, and I'll win. You don't have to fight me, Reverend, I told him. You can have him all to yourself. I don't even have to go back up there if that's all you want. You going back, he said, nodding his bald head and still trying hard to control his voice. You owe her much as I owe her. And long as I can stand on my feet, I owe her and all the others every ounce of my being, and you do too. I don't owe anybody anything, Reverend, I said, and turned toward the window. I felt his hand gripping my shoulder and pulling me around to face him. Don't you turn your back on me, boy. My name is Grant, I said. When you act educated, I'll call you Grant. I'll even call you Mr. Grant when you act like a man. His hand still grasped my shoulder, and I needed all my willpower to keep from knocking it off. He could see what I was thinking, and he slowly released his grip and brought his hand to his side. You think you the only one ever felt this way? He asked. You think I never felt this way? You think she never felt this way? Every last one of them back there one time in their life wanted to give up. She want to give up now. You know that? You got any idea how sick she is? Soon after he go, she's going to. I won't give her another year. I want her to believe he'll be up there waiting for her, and you can help me do it, and you the only one. How? Tell him to fall down on his knees before he walk to that chair. Tell him to fall down on his knees for her. You the only one he'll listen to. He won't listen to me. No, I said. I won't tell him to kneel. I'll tell him to listen to you, but I won't tell him to kneel. I will try to help him stand. You think a man can't kneel and stand? It hasn't helped me. The minister drew back from me. His head was shining, so was his face. I could see his mouth working as though he wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. You're just lost, he said. That's all. You're just lost. Yes, sir, I'm lost. Like most men, I'm lost. Not all men, he said. Me, I'm found. Then you're one of the lucky ones, Reverend. And I won't let you lose his soul in hell. I want him in heaven as much as you do, Reverend. A place you can't believe in. No, I don't believe in it, Reverend. And how can you tell him to believe in it? I'll never tell him not to believe in it. And suppose he asks you if it's there, then what? Suppose he write on that tablet you give him, is it there? Then what? I'll tell him I don't know. You're the teacher. Yes, but I was taught to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, not the gospel. I tell him I heard it was there, but I don't know. And suppose he asks you if you believe in heaven. Then what? I hope he doesn't, Reverend. Suppose he do. I hope he doesn't. You couldn't say yes? No, Reverend, I couldn't say yes. I couldn't lie to him at this moment. I will never tell him another lie, no matter what. Not for her sake? No, sir. The minister nodded his bald head and grunted to himself. His dark brown eyes and that tired, weary face continued to stare back at me. You think you educated, but you're not. You think you the only person ever had to lie? You think I never had to lie? I don't know, Reverend. Yes, you know. You know all right. That's why you look down on me, because you know I lie. At wakes, at funerals, at weddings. Yes, I lie. I lie at wakes and funerals to relieve pain. 'Cause reading, writing, and arithmetic is not enough. You think that's all they sent you to school for? They sent you to school to relieve pain, to relieve hurt. And if you have to lie to do it, then you lie. You lie, and you lie, and you lie. When you tell yourself you feeling good when you sick, you lying. When you tell other people you feeling well when you're feeling sick, you're lying. You tell them that 'cause they have pain too, and you don't want to add yours, and you lie. She been lying every day of her life, your aunt in there. That's how you got through that university. Cheating herself here, cheating herself there, but always telling you she's all right. I've seen her hands bleed from picking cotton. I've seen the blisters from the hoe and the cane knife. At that church, crying on her knees. You ever look at the scabs on her knees, boy? Course you never. 'Cause she never wanted you to see it. And that's the difference between me and you, boy. That make me the educated one and you the gump. I know my people. I know what they gone through. I know they done cheated themselves, lied to themselves, hoping that one they all love and trust can come back and help relieve the pain. Chapter 28. I went into the cell with a paper bag full of baked sweet potatoes. The deputy locked the heavy door behind me. How's it going, partner? Jefferson nodded. How do you feel? I'm all right. I brought you a little something. Jefferson was sitting on the bunk with his hands clasped together. I put the bag beside him on the bunk and sat down. I could hear the radio on the floor against the wall, playing a sad cowboy song. I saw the notebook and the pencil on the floor next to the radio. This was my first visit since I had given him the notebook and pencil, and I could see that the lead on the pencil was worn down to the wood. I could also see that he had used the eraser a lot. We were quiet a while. "Hungry?" I asked. "Maybe later." "I see you've been writing." He didn't answer. "Personal, or can I look at it?" "It ain't nothing." "Do you mind?" I asked. "If you won't." I got the notebook and came back to the bunk. The fellow on the radio was saying what a beautiful day it was in Baton Rouge. Jefferson had filled 3/4 of the first page. The letters were large and awkward, the way someone would write who could barely see. He had written across the lines instead of above them. He had used the eraser so much that in some places the paper was worn through. Nothing was capitalized, and there were no punctuation marks. The letters were thin at the beginning, but became broader as the lead was worn down. As closely as I could figure, he had written, "I dreamt it again last night. They was taking me somewhere. I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. I was just going with them. Then I woke up. I couldn't go back to sleep. I didn't want to go back to sleep. I didn't want dream no more." There was a lot of erasing. Then he wrote, "If I ain't nothing but a hog, how come they just don't knock me in the head like a hog? Starve me like a hog." More erasing. Then, "Man walk on 2 foots, hogs on 4 hoofs." The last couple of words were barely visible because the lead had been worn down all the way to the wood. I read it over a second time before closing the notebook. I didn't know what to say to him. He was staring at the wall, his hands clasped together. "Do you want me to bring you a pencil sharpener?" I asked after a while. "The little ones you hold in your hand?" "If you can find one." "I'm sure I can," I said. "You know, Paul would have sharpened this pencil for you. He wouldn't mind." Jefferson had unclasped his hands, and now he was scraping the ends of his left fingernails with the index finger of the right hand. His fingernails were hard and purplish. "When's Easter?" he asked. "Tomorrow is Good Friday." "That's when he rose?" "No, he rose on Easter." "That's when he died," Jefferson said to himself. "Never said a mumbling word. That's right. Not a word." "Did you talk to Reverend Ambrose when he came to visit you?" I asked Jefferson. "Some." "You ought to talk to him. It's good for your Nannin. She wants you to talk to him." "He told me to pray." "Do you?" "No." "It would be good for your Nannin." He looked at me. His eyes were large and sad and reddened. "You think I'm going to heaven?" he asked. "I don't know." "You think Mr. Grope went to heaven? You think Brother and Bear went to heaven?" "I don't know." "Then what I'm gonna pray for?" "For your Nannin." "Nannin don't need me to help her get to heaven. She'll make it if it's up there." "She wants you there with her, where there's no pain and no sorrow." He grinned at me, a brief cynical grin. "You pray, Mr. Wiggins?" "No, Jefferson, I don't." He grunted. "But then I'm lost, Jefferson," I said, looking at him closely. "At this moment, I don't believe in anything. Like your Nannin does, like Reverend Ambrose does, and like I want you to believe. I want you to believe so that one day maybe I will." "In heaven, Mr. Wiggins?" "If it helps others down here on earth, Jefferson. Reverend Ambrose say I have to give up what's down here. Say there ain't nothing down here on this earth for me no more." He meant possessions, Jefferson. Cars, money, clothes, things like that. "You ever seen me with a car, Mr. Wiggins?" "No." "With more than $1 in my pocket?" "No." "More than 2 pairs of shoes, Mr. Wiggins? One for Sunday, one for working in?" "No, Jefferson." "Then what on earth I got to give up, Mr. Wiggins?" You've never had any possessions to give up, Jefferson. But there is something greater than possessions, and that is love. I know you love her and would do anything for her. Didn't you eat the gumbo when you weren't hungry, just to please her? That's all we're asking for now, Jefferson. Do something to please her. What about me, Mr. Wiggins? What people done to please me? Hasn't she done many things to please you, Jefferson? Cooked for you? Washed for you? Taken care of you when you were sick? She is sick now, Jefferson, and she is asking for only one thing in this world. Walk like a man. Meet her up there. Y'all asking a lot, Mr. Wiggins, from a poor old nigger who never had nothing. She would do it for you. She go to that chair for me, Mr. Wiggins? You? Anybody? He waited for me to answer him. I wouldn't. No, Mr. Wiggins. I got to go myself. Just me, Mr. Wiggins. Reverend Ambrose say God be there if I ax him. You think he be there if I ax him, Mr. Wiggins? That's what they say, Jefferson. You believe in God, Mr. Wiggins? Yes, Jefferson, I believe in God. How? I think it's God that makes people care for people, Jefferson. I think it's God makes children play and people sing. I believe it's God that brings loved ones together. I believe it's God that makes trees bud and food grow out of the earth. Who make people kill people, Mr. Wiggins? They killed his son, Jefferson. And he never said a mumbling word. That's what they say. That's how I want to go, Mr. Wiggins. Not a mumbling word. Another cowboy song was playing on the radio, but it was quiet and not disturbing. I could hear inmates down the cell block calling to one another. Jefferson sat forward on the bunk, his big hands clasped together again. I still had the notebook. I started to open it, but changed my mind. You need anything, Jefferson? No, I don't need nothing, Mr. Wiggins. Reverend Ambrose say I don't need nothing down here no more. I'll get you that sharpener, I said. I ain't got nothing more to say, Mr. Wiggins. I'm sure you have. I hope the time just hurry up and get here. Cut out all this waiting. I wish I knew what to do, Jefferson. I'm the one got to do everything, Mr. Wiggins. I'm the one. He got up from the bunk and went to the window and looked up at the buds on the higher branches of the sycamore tree. Through the branches of the tree I could see the sky, blue and lovely and clear. You Are My Sunshine was playing on the radio. Jefferson turned his back to the window and looked at me. Me, Mr. Wiggins. Me. Me to take the cross. Your cross, Nannin's cross, my own cross. Me, Mr. Wiggins. This old stumbling nigger. Y'all ax a lot, Mr. Wiggins. He went to the cell door and grasped it with both hands. He started to jerk on the door, but changed his mind and turned back to look at me. Whoever carried my cross, Mr. Wiggins? My mama? My daddy? They dropped me when I wasn't nothing. Still don't know where they at this minute. I went in the field when I was 6, driving that old water cart. I done pulled that cotton sack. I done cut cane, load cane, swung that axe, chopped ditch banks, since I was 6. He was standing over me now. Yes, I'm human, Mr. Wiggins. But nobody didn't know that for now. Cuss for nothing, beat for nothing, work for nothing, grin to get by. Everybody thought that's how it was supposed to be. You too, Mr. Wiggins. You never thought I was nothing else. I didn't either. Thought I was doing what the Lord had put me on this earth to do. He went to the window and turned to look at me. Now all y'all want me to be better than everybody else. How, Mr. Wiggins? You tell me. I don't know, Jefferson. What I got left, Mr. Wiggins? 2 weeks? I think it's something like that, if nothing happens. Nothing gonna happen, Mr. Wiggins. And it ain't something like that. That's all I got on this here earth. I gotta face that, Mr. Wiggins. It's all right for y'all to say something like that. For me, it's that. That. That's all. And like Reverend Ambrose say, then I'll have to give up this old earth. But ain't that where I'm going, Mr. Wiggins? Back in the earth? My head down, I didn't answer him. You can look at me, Mr. Wiggins, I don't mind. I raised my head and I saw him standing there under the window, big and tall, and not stooped as he had been in chains. I'm going to do my best, Mr. Wiggins. That's all I can promise. My best. You're more a man than I am, Jefferson. 'Cause I'm going to die soon? That make me a man, Mr. Wiggins? My eyes were closed before this moment, Jefferson. My eyes have been closed all my life. Yes, we all need you. Every last one of us. He studied me a while, then he turned his back and looked up at the window. So pretty out there, he said. So pretty. I ain't never seen it so pretty. I looked at him standing there, big and tall, his broad back toward me. What it gonna be like, Mr. Wiggins? I thought I knew what he was talking about, but I didn't answer him. He turned around to face me. What it gonna feel like, Mr. Wiggins? I shook my head. I felt my eyes burning. I hope it ain't long. It's not long, Jefferson, I said. How you know, Mr. Wiggins? I read it. I was not looking at him. I was looking at the wall. It had been in the newspaper. The first jolt, if everything is right, immediately knocked a person unconscious. He came back and sat down on the bunk. I'm all right, Mr. Wiggins. I nodded without looking at him. Care for a tato, Mr. Wiggins? He said, opening the paper bag. Sure, I said. Chapter 29. Jefferson's Diary. Mr. Wiggins, you say write something, but I don't know what to write. And you say I must be thinking about things I ain't telling nobody. And I ought to put it on paper, but I don't know what to put on paper, 'cause I ain't never wrote nothing but homework. I ain't never wrote a letter in all my life, 'cause Nannin used to get other children to write her letter and read her letter for her, not me. So I can't think of too much to say, but maybe next time. It's evening, and I done eat my rice and beans, and I done had my cup of milk, and the sun coming in the window 'cause I can see it splashing on the floor, and I can hear Ned and them talking, and that's about all for now. I couldn't sleep last night 'cause I kept dreaming it, and I don't want dream it 'cause I'm just walking to somewhere, but I don't know where it's at. And 'fore I get to the door, I wake up, and I want to write in the tablet last night, but you ain't got no light in here but the moon, so I'm writing this morning soon as sun up, but now I done forgot what I want to say. Nannin brought me some Easter eggs, and I ate one, and Nannin ate one, and Reverend Ambrose, he ate one. And Reverend Ambrose asks me if I know why the Lord died, and he say he died for me so I can meet him in heaven. And all he want me to do is say I want be up there with him and the angels. And he say if I mean it with all my heart and soul, I'll go to heaven. And Nannin start crying again, and Miss Lou got to hug her. And Nannin say all I need to do and make her life worth living is ask the Lord forgive me in the pardon of my sin. And her and Reverend Ambrose was on their knee, and Miss Lou was still in the chair hugging her, and I was glad when Paul come and got me. I don't know what day it is, But last night I couldn't sleep, and I could hear Ned down the way snowing. And I laid there and thought about Samson, saying, if the Lord loved me, how come he let my wife die and leave me and them children? And how come he don't come here and take away people like them Matin brothers on the St. Charles River, instead of messing with po' old folks who ain't never done nothing but try and do all they know how to serve him? It looked like the Lord just worked for white folks, 'cause ever since I was nothing but a little boy, I've been on my own hauling water to the field, on that old water cart with all them dime buckets, and that dipper just hitting, and old Dorothy just trotting and trotting, and me up there hitting her with that rope, and all them dime buckets, and that dipper just hitting and hitting against that bale of water so I can get the people they food and they water on time. And the people see me and drop they hoe and come and get they bucket, 'cause they know they string or they mark on the top. And Boo's sitting under a bloodweed with his white beans and rice and going, where he at this here very minute? And how come he don't give a man a little breeze if he's so merciful? And Miss Rachel with her rice and greens saying, keep it up, just keep it up, and see if a clap of lightning don't come there and knock the fool out you. And Boo saying, let him, I don't care, 'cause a dead nigga is better off than alive one any weekday. And Sadie him getting drunk and say it again, and Sadie standing in the middle of the road hollering up in the air, saying, come on and get me, see if I care. And falling down in the ditch and rolling out in the road and holding up the bottle so the Lord could see it, and rolling back in the ditch and rolling back in the road and drinking and holding the bottle up so the Lord could see it, and saying, I know you don't love nobody but white folks 'cause you they God, not mine. And come on and throw your lightning if you want, 'cause no nigga ain't got no God. And the church-going people closing their doors and windows to keep from hearing Boo blaspheming the Lord. But me and the rest of the children in the quarter like Boo 'cause he always bought us candy and cake. I just can't sleep no more, 'cause every time I shut my eyes, I see that dough, and before I get there, I wake up. And I don't go back to sleep 'cause I don't want walk to that dough no more, 'cause I don't know what back of there. If it's where they gonna put that chair, or if it's supposed to mean death, or the grave, or heaven. I don't know. I wonder if Boo went to heaven, 'cause I know he didn't get religion first. Mr. Wiggin, you say you like what I got here, but you say you still can't give me a A, just a B, 'cause you say I ain't gone deep in me yet. And you know I can if I try hard. And when I ask you what you mean deep in me, you say, just say what's on my mind, so one day you can be saved, and you can save the children. And I say I don't know what you mean, and you say I do know what you mean. And you look so tired sometime, Mr. Wiggin. I just feel like telling you I like you, but I don't know how to say this 'cause I ain't never say it to nobody before, and nobody ain't never say it to me. I know I care for Nannin, but I don't know if love is care, 'cause cutting wood and hauling water and things like that, I don't know if that's love or just work to do. And you say that's love, but you say you know I got more than just that to say. And when I lay there at night and can't sleep, I try and think what you mean I got more, 'cause I ain't done this much thinking and this much writing in all my life before. It's Monday, and I ain't got but just a few days left, and I hope I see my Nannin just one more time, 'cause Miss Lou and Reverend Ambrose say she ain't faring too good and couldn't make it with them this time. But the Lord know, Mr. Wiggin, I hope I can see her one more time on this earth before I go. Is that love, Mr. Wiggin, when you won't see somebody bad? Mr. Wiggin, thank you for saying I'm doing B+ work and you know the A ain't too far. The chef and Mr. Pitcho and Mr. Morgan come in the cell today, and Mr. Pitcho asks me how I'm doing, and I tell him I'm doing all right. And he say yes, he can see I'm all right. And he asks me if he can do something for me. And I tell him no, sir, I'm all right. And he asks me if I want a brand new pencil with a penny erase on it. And I told him I would take the pencil, but I don't need the erase, 'cause you told me to just put down anything come in my head, and if it ain't right, just scratch over it and go on. And he say yes, he can see that. And he asks me if I want him to sharpen my pencil, and I say yes, sir. And he sharpened the pencil on a teeny pearl handle knife. And I look at the knife, and I see Mr. Pichot look up at Chef Geary and Mr. Morgan, and the chef look back at him. But Mr. Morgan never stopped looking at me like he was trying to figure me. And Mr. Pichot asks me if I want the little knife, and I tell him, yes, sir, I didn't mind. And he unhooked the little gold chain from his belt loop and hand me the knife and the chain, and he say it was all mine. And I say just for a few days, and you can have it back. And I held the little knife in my hand and the chain in my other hand, and just look at it. And I hear Mr. Pichot say, well, and I hear Mr. Morgan say it ain't Friday yet. And Mr. Pichot say you won't double that bet? You won't add that trotter? And Mr. Morgan say, it still ain't Friday yet. Old Clark been coming round too, trying to act like a human. But I can see in his face he ain't no good. And I don't even look at him when he asks me if I'm doing all right, and can he get me something. No, I just go on writing in my tablet, and I don't care if he do see it after I'm dead and gone. Paul trying to be hard when he ain't, like he don't want get too close to me no more. And all the time he is the only one round here know how to talk like a human to people. I know you, Paul, and I know old Clark, and I know you too, Chef Geary, and you, Mr. Pichot, and Mr. Morgan, and all the rest of y'all. I just never say none of this before, but I know y'all, every last one of y'all. Lord have mercy, sweet Jesus, Mr. Wiggin, where all them people come from. When you ask me if some children can come up here and speak to me, I didn't know you was meaning all them children in your class, and just sitting there on the floor all quiet in they clean clothes looking at me. And I could see some was scared of me, but most was brave and spoke. And my little cousin Estelle even come up and kissed me on the jaw, and I couldn't hold it back no more. Then after the children, here come the old folks, and looked like everybody from the quarter was here. Miss Julia, and Joe, and Miss Harriet, and Aunt Agnes, and Mr. Noman, and Miss Sarah, and Miss Lelia, and Mr. Harry, and Miss Lena, and God know who all, and Mr. Ophir, and Miss Philia with her beads and just praying, and all the people saying how good I look. And Lord have mercy, sweet Jesus, Mr. Wiggin, how you got Boke in that suit. That suit looked like it half Boke size, 'cause I remember Miss Rita got him that suit way back 10-11 years back. And Boke babbing there like he know me, and Miss Rita saying he won't say he glad to see me, and he won't give me one of his agates. And me just looking at Boke shaking my head, and shaking my head. And I can't stop saying, oh Boke, oh Boke, oh Boke. You won't give me one of your agates? But old Boke wouldn't turn it loose, till Miss Rita had to tell him let go Boke few times, and still Boke wouldn't turn loose till Miss Rita pried out his hand, and handed it to me, and Boke start babbing there till Miss Rita had to reach out her hand for me to give it back to her, and she gave it back to Boke, and Boke put it back in his pocket and start rattling it with all the others in there. And Miss Rita say she was sure he want to give me something, that's why he want to come. And I told her it was all right, I didn't need nothing, but she say Boke wouldn't rest tonight if he didn't give me something. And she told him to give me a different one if he didn't want give me the Aggie. And old Boke looking way over yonder kept rattling the marbles in his pocket, and just kept on looking way over yonder rattling the marbles till he found the littlest one he had in his pocket and handed me that. This was the first time I cried when they locked that door behind me, the very first time. And I just sat on my bunk crying, but not let them see or hear me, 'cause I didn't want them think wrong. But I was crying 'cause of Boke and the marble he give me, and 'cause of the people come to see me, 'cause they had never done nothing like that for me before. I don't want sleep at night no more, just catnap in the day, while they got light and they got noise, 'cause I don't want dream about that dough every time I shut my eyes. When they brought me in the room and I seen Nannin at the table, I seen how old she looked and how tired she looked. And I told her I love her, and I told her I was strong. And she just looked old and tired and pulled me to her and kissed me. And it was the first time. She never done that. And it felt good. And I let her hold me long as she want, 'cause you say it was good for her. And I told her I was strong, and she didn't need to come back no more 'cause I was strong. And she just sat there with her eyes most shut like she want to go to sleep, looking at me all the time, till Reverend and Miss Lou have to help her up and take her back home. Mr. Wiggin, when I see you, girlfriend, and y'all together, I see how pretty she is. And I'm sorry how I talked that day when I was mad at you and say them nasty thing about her 'cause she's so pretty, and smiles so pretty when she look at people, and you can see she ain't putting on airs, and it's just quality in her, and she talks so nice to people, and all the time I won't look at her, but scared to 'cause she's so pretty and I'm so ugly. And she got on a pretty dress with pretty flowers, and my clothes don't smell good, and I ain't took a bath since Saturday, but I still won't look at her. And she say she think I'm looking good and strong. And when she put her hand on my shoulder, I start trembling, and she leaned close and kissed me, and I feel hot, and I could smell her powder scent, and I feel good and scared and hot, 'cause that's the first lady that pretty ever touched me. And nobody that pretty never kissed me, and when y'all left, I come to the door and I look at her long as I could smell her powder scent and still feel her mouth on my face. I'm sorry I cry, Mr. Wiggin. I'm sorry I cry when you say you ain't coming back tomorrow. I'm strong, and Reverend Ambrose gonna be here with me, and Mr. Harry coming too. And reason I cry 'cause you been so good to me, Mr. Wiggin, and nobody ain't never been that good to me and make me think I'm somebody. Chef Geary asked me what I want for my supper, and I told him I want Nanny to cook me some okra and rice and some pork chop and a cornbread and some clabber. And he say he gonna see what he can do and say what I want for dessert, and I told him just a little ice cream in a cup and a moon pie. They took me and let me stand under the shower with a new bar of soap, and they give me a big white clean towel and brought me back, and I put on some clean clothes and sat down 'cause my food was here, and I ate it every bit. And it was the best meal I know my nanny ever cooked. Sun going down, and I know this the last one I'm ever gonna see, but I'm gonna see one more sunrise 'cause I ain't gonna sleep tonight. I'm gonna sleep a long time after tomorrow. Chef Geary come by after I ate and asks me how I'm doing, and I say I'm doing all right. And he asks me, he say, I ain't never pick up your tablet and look in it. And he asks me what all I been writing, and I told him just things. And he say, ain't he done treat me right? And I told him, yes, sir. And he say, ain't his deputies done treat me fair? And I told him, yes, sir. And he say, ain't he done let people visit me anytime? And I say, yes, sir. And he say, didn't he let the children and all the people from the quarter come and visit me just 2 days ago? And I say, yes, sir. And he say, is you gonna put that in your tablet? And I say, yes, sir. And he say, good. Put that down in your tablet. I treat you good all the time you been here. And he say he had to go home 'cause he hadn't ate his supper yet, but for me to call a deputy if I need something. And he asks me if I want the light to stay on all night in case I want write some more. And I told him, yes, sir. And he say, all right, I could have all the light I want. My light on, but they ain't no more light on in the place. And the place is quiet. Quiet, but nobody's sleeping. They got a moon out there, and I can see the leaves on the tree, but I ain't gonna see no more leaves after tomorrow. I don't know if they got a heaven 'cause Samson say they can't be, and Boo say they ain't none for no nigger, but Reverend Ambrose say they is one for all men, and Boke don't know. I've been shaken and shaken, but I'm gonna stay strong. I ain't had no business going there with Brother and Bear, 'cause they ain't no good, and I'm gonna be meeting them soon. It's quiet, and I can hear my teeth hitting, and I can hear my heart. When I was a little boy, I was a water boy and rode the cart, but now I got to be a man and set in a chair. Don't know if you can read this, Mr. Wiggin. My hand's shaking, and I can hear my heart. I can hear Randy, but I ain't listening no more, 'cause he for the living and not for me. It's late and I don't know what time it is, but I know it's late, and I just went to the toilet and I just washed my face. Day breaking. Sun coming up. The bird in the tree sound like a bluebird. Sky blue, Mr. Wiggin. Goodbye, Mr. Wiggin. Tell them I'm strong. Tell them I'm a man. Goodbye, Mr. Wiggin. I'm gonna ask Paul if he can bring you this. Sincerely, Jefferson. Chapter 30. Sidney de Rogers was on his way to George Giroux' house to mow the lawn when the truck went by him. He didn't pay any close attention to the black truck with the gray tarpaulin cover, but he would tell people later at the Rainbow Club that he did feel a cold chill when the truck went by. The truck turned left on the main street 2 blocks up ahead of Sidney, but he thought it was just another truck delivering something at one of the department stores. Around 11 o'clock, George Giroux' wife, Lucy, came out into the yard where Sidney was raking up the grass and leaves and told him that she wanted him to go uptown to Edwin's department store and get her a large spool of white thread. Sidney drove the 6 blocks in Lucy's car, and as he was approaching the store, he saw a crowd of people standing on the sidewalk facing the courthouse. Parked beside the courthouse was the same truck that Sidney had seen at 8 o'clock that morning. The tarpaulin had been rolled back, and 2 men sat at the tail end of the truck, talking and smoking cigarettes. Sidney parked a little distance beyond the department store and walked back. He saw many people he knew, both white and colored, but no one paid him any attention. They were too concerned with the truck parked beside the courthouse. When Sidney came into the store, he found all the clerks up at the front, trying to see what was going on in the truck. He stood back waiting, but no one paid him any attention. Finally, he told one of the women that Miss Lucy had sent him up there for a spool of coarse white thread. Without looking around, the woman told him to go and find it himself. When he came back to pay her, she told him to have Lucy send the money some other time. My aunt did not sleep at the house the night before. Like many of the other older people in the quarter, she spent the night with Miss Emma. Some of the others took shifts, but my aunt stayed there the whole night. Reverend Ambrose was there until midnight. Then he went home to get some sleep, because the sheriff had told him he wanted all witnesses at the courthouse no later, absolutely no later, than 11:30 the next morning. Vivian and I sat in the corner of the Rainbow Club that night. There were more than a dozen people in the place, but it was quieter than I had ever seen it. Vivian held on to her one drink all the time she was there, and when she left, she still had not finished it. She had gone to church after her class that afternoon, and she told me she would go again the next morning. She told me that from noon until she heard, she would have her students on their knees beside their desks. She left the Rainbow Club at 9. After walking her to the car and kissing her good night, I went back inside and stood at the bar. Claiborne wiped glasses and did not talk to anybody. He served you when you raised your glass for another drink or your bottle for another beer. Then he went back to wiping glasses. Thelma had closed up the cafe just after 9 and gone home. Claiborne said he was going to close up at 11 tonight. I told him I wanted a half pint to take with me. Claiborne wrapped it in a brown paper bag and I paid him, but we didn't look directly at each other. At 10:30, I left, but I still didn't want to go home, and I drove to a bar in Port Allen. I ran into a guy there who knew me and wanted to talk about it, But I didn't want to talk about it, and after I had a drink, I started back for the quarter. I got back there about midnight. The place was pitch black, except for the light on Miss Emma's porch. A couple of cars I didn't recognize were parked in front of the house. I suppose they were family, or friends who had come to be with her tonight. I didn't stop. There was nothing more to say. I went on home. I took the bottle out of the paper bag and drank about half of it. I had bought the liquor to make me sleep, but God knows now I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to dream. Not tonight. The minister did not sleep at all that night, and at daybreak he got up and knelt beside his bed to say his prayers. Then he went to the kitchen to warm water for his bath. His wife, Mrs. Becky, came into the kitchen to fix him a bowl of kush-kush for his breakfast. When the minister finished his bath, he sat down at the table to eat. He had a cup of coffee before he ate his food. He ate very slowly as he sat at the table thinking about what he had to do today. After he finished his breakfast, he went into the bedroom to get his Bible. Then he came back into the kitchen and sat down at the table again. He had chosen the 23rd Psalm to read at the jail. He made that choice soon after the sheriff had given him permission to be one of the witnesses. Now he was reading his Bible and praying that God would give him the strength that he knew he needed. He had never witnessed anything like this before, and he knew he needed God every moment that he would be there. He knew that Harry Williams was going to be there too, and he told himself he would stand or sit as close to Harry as he could. He also reminded himself that he would meet Lecoq soon after it was over. Lecoq was the colored mortician at Bayonne, and he would have the coffin ready. At 6:30, the sheriff sat down at the table in his dining room to eat his breakfast. His breakfast was 2 homemade biscuit sandwiches. The biscuits had been split open. One contained a pork sausage patty, and the other contained figs. Lillian, their colored maid, had preserved figs the past summer. The sheriff also drank a glass of milk and a cup of strong coffee. Usually, the sheriff ate his breakfast at 8 o'clock and arrived at the jail at 9, but he wanted to get there no later than 7:30 today, because that chair was supposed to arrive by 8. The sheriff's wife sat across the table from him, drinking coffee. It was too early in the morning for her to eat anything. As the sheriff ate, he talked to his wife, but he avoided looking her directly in the face most of the time. He told her that he wished this day had never gotten here, but now that it had, he had to do what he had to do. This was the first time he was in charge of an execution, and he was praying that everything would go well. He told his wife that he had asked the teacher if he wanted to be there, but the teacher had shaken his head. He understood, he had said to the teacher. The Reverend had asked to be there, and he had asked the Reverend if one other person from the quarter would like to be there too. The Reverend said he would ask, and the next day the Reverend came in and told him that Harry Williams had said yes. The sheriff knew Harry Williams and knew he was no troublemaker. The sheriff ate his food and looked beyond his wife as he mentioned the names of other witnesses. He had also hired 2 more deputies to be there today, just in case he needed them. 2 people from Mr. Gropet's family were going to be there, and he thanked God that the family had let him handle this in a civilized way. He told his wife without looking directly at her that it would take place in the storeroom on the bottom floor in the back of the courthouse. He said everything had been cleared out of the room, so there would be space for the chair and the witnesses. Melvina Jack was sweeping off the sidewalk at Edwin's department store when the truck went by her. She had finished and was knocking the dust out of the broom when she saw the truck turn down the alley beside the courthouse. Juanita DeJean, one of the white clerks in the store, came outside and asked Melvina if she had any idea what was inside that truck. Melvina did not, and Juanita told her that she would know before this day was over. An automobile drove up and parked in front of the courthouse in the space marked Official. The sheriff's car was already parked in his personal parking space. 2 men got out of the official car and went inside the courthouse. The older, heavier man wore a cowboy hat, and both men wore suits. Melvina and Juanita continued to watch the truck parked beside the courthouse. Then suddenly Melvina's heart started pumping extra fast, and Juanita heard her say, "No, no." "Yes, yes," she heard Juanita say. While they stood there watching the truck, Sheriff Guidry came out of the courthouse with the two men, and the three of them went around the side of the truck. Sheriff Guidry said something to the driver, and the truck moved toward the rear of the courthouse, up against a window. Two men got out of the cab of the truck and climbed up onto the bed and began rolling back the tarpaulin cover. Then Melvina saw it. A high-backed wooden chair with leather straps, and it took all her strength, she said later, to remain on her feet. The two men, one on either side, moved the chair to the tailgate of the truck, and two other men, who had come out of the back door of the courthouse, stood on the ground with their arms extended as the chair was eased down to them. When the men on the ground had the chair secured in their hands, the two men in the truck jumped down to the ground, and the four of them took the chair through the door into the courthouse. There was something else in the truck, a machine-looking thing, Melvina said. Juanita told her that nothing would happen until 12 o'clock, and that she could go home at 11:30 if she wanted to. Melvina thanked her, but still she could not take her eyes off the truck. She heard Juanita saying that she wished something like this could be done somewhere else. What about those poor children up at the school? She just hoped that they would not hear that thing. Melvina knew she was speaking of the white children at the white school, but she had no idea what it was that could be heard as far away as the school was from the courthouse. During the month that he was in jail, Fee Jenkins' duty was to clean the sheriff's office and the white men's and white ladies' restrooms. He started every morning between 6 and 6:30 and finished around 8 or a little after. He was just getting ready to put away the mop and bucket when he saw them bringing that chair in through the back door. 4 people were carrying it, 2 strangers, and the 2 special deputies, Oscar and Claude Guerin. The sheriff walked in front, and a man wearing a cowboy hat followed the chair. The man with the cowboy hat kept saying, "Be careful, be careful." He didn't want that chair bumping into anything. The sheriff opened the door to the old storeroom, and the 2 strangers took it inside. Then everyone followed. They did not shut the door, and Fee could hear them talking in there, though from where he was in the hall he could not see them. He could hear the sheriff asking where the chair should be set, and the man in the cowboy hat was saying he wanted it against the wall, not far from the window, because those wires from the generator on the truck had to come through the window. Other people who had come to work were also in the corridor. A woman was saying that she had seen it, and it looked just gruesome. A man said it did look gruesome, and that's why they called it Gruesome Gertie. The man told the woman that whoever sat in Gruesome Gertie's lap when she was hot never sat down again. The woman replied, "That is gruesome." Fee heard the man with the cowboy hat tell someone to go out to the truck and bring in the instruments. A white man standing behind Fee asked him if he had seen it. Fee said he surely had, and it looked mean. The white man told Fee he had better watch himself, or maybe they would have to bring Gertie back for him to sit in her lap. Another man laughed nervously. A woman in the hall told the man shame on him. He ought to stop that. Just shame on him. Fee could hear the man with the cowboy hat talking to another man through the window. He was asking the man did everything reach okay, and the man out on the truck said yes, everything did. Out in the corridor, more people were coming in for work. They all wanted to know if the first ones there had seen it. Some of them who had not seen it said they had. Someone said if you had not seen it, you would most definitely hear it. And a woman said she wished she had played sick and stayed home today. A man told her that anyone who wanted to leave was free to stay away between 12 and 3. The woman said she was not going to be anywhere around here. Someone asked, was it always between 12 and 3, and another man said yes, it always was. And someone else said the Lord died between 12 and 3 on a Friday. A woman said yes, and so did 2 thieves, one on either side of him. Fee heard the woman saying that she definitely was not going to be here during that time. She said she felt sick already. Clay Lemon, who worked at Weber's Cafe and Bar and Bait Shop, and who ran errands for Felix Weber, had just gotten out of the car to go into the bank when he first heard the noise. The sound was coming from the direction of the courthouse, a block and a half away. Clay said later that he did not know what it was, nor did he know exactly where it was coming from. A white man and a white woman walking ahead of him were just about to go into the bank when the woman stopped suddenly and looked back. She said, "Oh God, don't tell me that they have started." And the man said, "Come on, dear, come on, don't listen to that." The man held the door open for the woman, but she would not go inside, and Clay would not dare go through the door until the white people did. The man told the woman that nothing was going to happen until after 12 o'clock, and they would be long gone by then. He said that they were just warming up the thing, testing those instruments to make sure everything was in working order. The woman said, "But my God, the whole town can hear that thing." The man said, come on, dear," and put his arm around her. They went inside, and Clay followed. The woman asked the clerk behind the counter if she had heard it. The clerk asked, "Heard what?" The woman told about the noise that was coming from the courthouse. The clerk said that being inside, they heard very little from that far away. The woman shook her head and said, "It was just horrible, just too horrible." The clerk told the woman that her little boy had asked her last night what was going to happen at the jail today, and she said that the sheriff just had to put an old bad nigger away, and she didn't want him to worry about anything. The clerk said that she had checked on her little boy just before she went to bed last night, and he was sound asleep. And today, when he left for school with his little book sack, there was not a solitary word. He had forgotten all about it. The clerk said all this while serving the white man and white woman. Then Clay stepped up to the counter, but he had forgotten why he was there. The clerk, who was very thin, with blonde hair and gray-blue eyes, looked at him and said, Well, I don't have all day. Didn't you bring it?" But Clay didn't know what she was talking about. "Didn't Felix send you here to get the money, you dumbbell?" she asked him. He must have given her the sack with the note and the check, because the next thing he knew, he had the weight of quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies in the sack, and he was outside again in the bright sunlight, and he could still hear the noise from the generator a block and a half away. Paul was in the office when the sheriff and the executioner came in, followed by the two special deputies, Claude and Oscar Guerin. The sheriff sat behind his desk and motioned for the executioner, whose name was Henry Vincent, to have a seat. Vincent took off his cowboy hat and hung it on the rack beside the sheriff's cowboy hat. Paul noticed that the hair on top of Vincent's head was not as gray as the sideburns were. The sheriff asked Vincent if he wanted some coffee, and Vincent said yes. The sheriff told Oscar to go down the hall and get that pot of coffee and bring back some cups. Vincent asked the sheriff if the prisoner had been shaved. The sheriff said no. Vincent asked the sheriff if he didn't think it was about time. The sheriff looked at Paul standing by the window. He told Paul where the things were. He should get Murphy out of the cell and have him do it. Vincent instructed Paul to make sure Murphy did it right, shaved him close. He pointed to areas on the leg and wrist. He said electrodes had to be attached there as well as to the head, and all that had to be shaved very clean. The sheriff told the executioner that the prisoner had hardly any hair on his body other than on his head. Vincent told Paul that Murphy must shave the prisoner everywhere he told him to. Electricity sometimes found hair that the naked eye would never see. He said that this was an execution, not torture, that he had seen enough of that for a lifetime. Paul asked the sheriff if someone else couldn't do this. The sheriff told him that Clark would not be there until later, and that he had to do it. Paul nodded for Claude Guerin to come with him, and they went into the next room. He could hear Vincent asking the sheriff if he thought Paul was all right, and the sheriff saying that he was, but this was his first time. Vincent told the sheriff that all they needed was for one of their own men to come apart. The sheriff assured him that Paul was okay, but that this was his first time, that's all. Vincent told the sheriff he hoped he knew his men. Paul and Claude left through another door, Claude carrying a wash basin, clippers, scissors, and a safety razor. People came out of their offices to ask Paul if it was time yet. The special deputy told them that it was only hair-cutting time. A man standing at one of the office doors said, "Oh, yes, he had heard that they got a haircut first." Someone else said, "What an experience. What an experience. You didn't get to witness this every day." Paul and Claude went up to the cell block and unlocked Murphy's cell and told him he had a job for him to do. Murphy looked at the things in Claude's hands and asked why him. "Because the sheriff said so," Paul told him. Murphy came out, and the three of them went down to the last cell. Jefferson had been lying on his back, but he sat up and looked at them when they came in. He didn't seem frightened. He appeared tired. Paul could see how red his eyes were and knew that he had not slept at all. Paul asked him how he felt, and he said he was all right. He wore a blue denim shirt and denim trousers. His laceless shoes were halfway under the bunk. The radio and the notebook were on the floor beside the wall. The radio was silent. A bird sang in the sycamore tree outside the window. Paul told Jefferson that he had to have his hair shaved. He sent Murphy to get warm water and a piece of soap from the shower room. While Murphy was gone, Paul and the other deputies stood near the unlocked cell door. Jefferson sat on the bunk, leaning forward and staring down at the floor. The two deputies watched him, but no one said anything. The bird continued its chirping in the tree outside the window. Jefferson turned to look at the deputy standing beside Paul and asked him how was Miss Bernice. Claude didn't know whether he should answer until Paul nodded, and Claude told him that his wife was okay. "And little Roy?" Jefferson wanted to know. Claude looked at Paul, and Paul nodded again. Little Roy was all right, too. He was at school. Jefferson looked down at the floor. Murphy came back with a wash basin of warm water and a piece of white soap. He set the basin of water on the floor at the foot of the bunk and took the clippers from Claude Guerin. Claude tried not to meet Jefferson's eyes when Jefferson looked up at him. The two deputies stood back by the door and watched as the layers of hair fell to the floor. When Murphy had finished with the clippers, he dipped his hand into the basin of warm water and started rubbing Jefferson's head with a piece of white soap. Claude handed him the safety razor. When the head was shaved, black and shining, Paul instructed Murphy to take the scissors and cut Jefferson's trouser legs and shirt sleeves. He stood over Murphy and pointed out the areas around the ankles and wrists where he wanted him to shave. All this time, Jefferson obeyed as if he were in a trance, as if he felt nothing. When Murphy was finished, he stood back and examined his work, but Jefferson was looking down at the floor. Paul asked him if he needed anything, and when he did not answer, the deputy motioned for Claude and Murphy to leave. He followed and locked the cell door. As he was about to walk away, Jefferson raised his head and looked at him. He told Paul that he wanted him to bring me the notebook and that he wanted Paul to have the radio. Paul told him he couldn't take the radio, but he would give it to the other inmates for use in the day room if Jefferson didn't mind. Jefferson asked Paul if he wanted the marble that Boak had given him, and Paul told him he would accept the marble. He told Paul to be sure that Mr. Henri got the pocket knife and the little gold chain. Paul said he would see to that. Jefferson continued to look at Paul, a long, deep look, and the deputy felt that there was something else he wanted to say. Murphy and the other deputy were still waiting. "Well," Paul said, and started to walk away. "Paul," Jefferson said quietly, and his eyes were speaking even more than his mouth. The deputy looked back at him. Murphy and Claude did too. "You gonna be there, Paul?" Jefferson asked. His eyes asked. Paul nodded. "Yes, Jefferson. I'll be there." Chapter 31, the last chapter. After the students had recited their Bible verses, and before classes began, I told them that there would be no recess period for them today, and that I would let them go home for dinner at 11 o'clock, because I wanted them all back at school no later than 11:45. I told them that at exactly 12 o'clock, they would all get down on their knees and remain on their knees until I heard from the courthouse, whether that took an hour and a half, or 3 hours. Lewis Washington, Jr. stuck up a grimy little hand. Suppose somebody got to be excused. Then he'll make up that time on his knees after 3 o'clock, I told him. For every minute that you don't spend on your knees between 12 o'clock and until I hear from the courthouse, you will spend twice that time on your knees after 3. Any other questions? No, sir. Does anyone else have a question? No one did. All right, open those books, and I want silence, and I mean silence. I assigned Odessa Freeman primer in first grades. Irene Cole would teach second and third. Fourth graders opened their books to English grammar. Fifth graders, geography. Sixth, history. I told them I would test them later. If not this afternoon, then definitely tomorrow morning. I knew I would not be able to concentrate on teaching this morning, so I got my Westcott ruler and went outside. It was a nice day. Blue sky, not a cloud. Across the road in the Freeman's yard, I could see a patch of white lilies on either side of the walk that led up to the porch. An old automobile tire surrounded each flower. Behind the house was the sugarcane field. The new cane was about waist high to the average man walking between the rows. Somewhere across the field I could hear the sound of a tractor. A white sharecropper must have been plowing the ground, since no colored people were working today. Even those who worked up at the big house for Henri Pachot or for other white people along the river had taken the day off. This had been discussed and agreed at church last Sunday. Those who were not at church were told what the others had decided, that he, Jefferson, should have all their respect this one day. Now, except for the sound of the tractor back in the field, the rest of the plantation was quiet. No one sat out on the porch. No one worked in the garden. No one walked across the yard or in the road. I looked toward Miss Emma's house, farther down the quarter. My aunt was there, others were there, but they were all inside. The front door was shut, though the window was open to let in fresh air. I could see the white gauze curtain hanging limp in the window. I went around to the back of the church. Like so many country churches, it was wood-framed, long and narrow, with a corrugated tin roof and a bell tower. Years ago, I was told, the church sat flat on the ground. Later, it was set up on wooden blocks. During the 30s, when I was a student here, the wooden blocks, which had rotted over the years, were replaced by bricks. A year or two before I started teaching, Farrell Giroux and a couple of other men removed the bricks and put in cement blocks. But now even the cement blocks had sunk so low in the ground that a child losing a marble or a ball under the church had a hard time crawling under there to retrieve it. I remembered playing rag ball back here, the other children and I, using our fists as bats. We all tried to hit the ball out of the yard for a home run. I supposed I had done so as many times as anyone else, but the number of times was nothing to brag about. Where were all the others now? Most had gone. To southern cities, to northern cities, others to the grave. Had Jefferson ever hit a home run? He was as big as anyone else, stronger than most, but to hit a home run off a rag ball was a feat. Brute strength was not enough. Timing and luck were needed. You had to hit it just right, and that took timing and luck. Lily Green hit as many as anyone else, I supposed, but her luck ran out before she was 20. Killed accidentally in a barroom in Baton Rouge. What a waste. Such a beautiful girl. All the boys loved Lily Green. I started back toward the front. What about tomorrow? What happens after today? Nothing will ever be the same after today. At 5 minutes to 11, I was standing at my desk, facing the open front door, when I saw the minister's car go up the quarter, with Harry Williams sitting in the passenger seat beside him. They were on their way into Bayonne. I told my students to put away their things quietly. Before letting them go, I reminded them that I didn't want any running or loud talking and that I wanted them all back at school no later than 11:45. When they had all gone, I sat down at my desk facing the door. I did not want to think. I wanted to sit there until I heard, but not to think before then. No, I wanted to go to my car and drive away, to go somewhere and lose all memory of where I had come from. I wanted to go. I wanted to... God, what does a person do who knows there is only one more hour to live? I felt like crying, but I refused to cry. No, I would not cry. There were too many more who would end up as he did. I could not cry for all of them, could I? I wished I could telephone Vivian, but there was not one telephone, public or otherwise, between here and Bayonne that I could use. I would see her tonight, though. I would definitely see her tonight. I need to see you tonight, my love. But who was with him? Who is with you, Jefferson? Is he with you, Jefferson? He is with Reverend Ambrose, because Reverend Ambrose believes. Do you believe, Jefferson? Have I done anything to make you not believe? If I have, please forgive me for being a fool. For at this moment, what else is there? I know now that that old man is much braver than I. I am not with you at this moment because I would not have been able to stand. I would not have been able to walk with you those last few steps. I would have embarrassed you. But the old man will not. He will be strong. He is going to use their God to give him strength. You just watch, Jefferson, you just watch. He is brave, braver than I, braver than any of them, except you, I hope. My faith is in you, Jefferson. The children returned from dinner as I had asked them to do, and at 11:50, I lined them up before the door. When the last one had marched into the church, I went to my desk to face them. In a couple of minutes, it will be 12 o'clock. I will ask you to get down on your knees and remain on your knees until I ask you to get up. Are there any questions? Lewis Washington, Jr. raised that grimy little hand again. Is you gonna bow down too, Mr. Wiggins? The proper way to ask that question is, are you going to bow down too, Mr. Wiggins? You gonna bow down too? I'll be outside, I told the class. Irene, you, Odessa, and Clarence are in charge. All right, please, on your knees. I'll tell you when to get up. We need to pray? Lewis Washington, Jr. wanted to know. Yes, I told him, but quietly, to yourself. Several of the larger girls knelt on scarves or handkerchiefs. I took up my waistcoat and went out through the front door. I had no idea what I would do while I waited to hear from Bayonne, but I found myself out in the road and walking up the corridor. It was a couple of minutes after 12, and I was trying not to think. But how could I not think about something that had dominated my thoughts for nearly 6 months? It seemed that I had spent more time with him in that jail cell than I had with the children in the church school. Where was he at this very moment? At the window, looking out at the sky? Lying on the bunk, staring up at the gray ceiling? Standing at the cell door, waiting? How did he feel? Was he afraid? Was he crying? Were they coming to get him now, this moment? Was he on his knees, begging for one more minute of life? Was he standing? Why wasn't I there? Why wasn't I standing beside him? Why wasn't my arm around him? Why? Why wasn't I back there with the children? Why wasn't I down on my knees? Why? At the mouth of the corridor there was shade from a pecan tree in the corner of the fence surrounding Henri Pachot's yard. A shallow ditch ran between the fence and the road. The people from the quarter had sat under that tree as far back as I could remember. Men had gambled there with cards and dice. Others had stood or sat there to get out of the hot sun or the rain. Before I had a car, I had stood there many times waiting for the bus. The bus driver always blew the horn about a mile before he got there, and I would have time to cross the highway to wave it down. There would always be someone there. But today I sat alone. Behind me was Henri Pachot's gray and white antebellum house, sitting on its foundation high above the ground. His car was parked on the grass in the front yard. I figured that he would be the first to hear, and maybe he would come into the quarter. I looked back over my shoulder when I sat down, and I looked back every minute or two afterward. It must have been 12:15 by now. I didn't want to look at my watch anymore. Had it already happened? Or was he still waiting, sitting on the bunk, hands clasped together, waiting? Was he standing at the cell door, listening for that first sound of footsteps coming toward him? Or was it finally over? Don't tell me to believe. Don't tell me to believe in the same God or laws that men believe in who commit these murders. Don't tell me to believe that God can bless this country and that men are judged by their peers. Who among his peers judged him? Was I there? Was the minister there? Was Harry Williams there? Was Farrell Giroux? Was my aunt? Was Vivian? No, his peers did not judge him. And I will not believe. Yet they must believe. They must believe, if only to free the mind, if not the body. Only when the mind is free has the body a chance to be free. Yes, they must believe. They must believe. Because I know what it means to be a slave. I am a slave. I looked back, but there was no movement in Henri Pachot's house. It must have been close to 12:30, but I refused to look at my watch. Several feet away from where I sat under the tree was a hill of bullgrass. I doubted that I had looked at it once in all the time that I had been sitting there. I probably would not have noticed it at all had a butterfly, a yellow butterfly with dark specks like ink dots on its wings, not lit there. What had brought it there? There was no odor that I could detect to have attracted it. There were other places where it could have rested. There was the wire fence on either side of the road. There were weeds along both ditches with strong fragrances. There were flowers just a short distance away in Pachot's yard. So why did it light on a hill of bullgrass that offered it nothing? I watched it closely, the way it opened its wings and closed them, the way it opened its wings again, fluttered, closed its wings for a second or two, and opened them again and flew away. I watched it fly over the ditch and down into the quarter. I watched it until I could not see it any more. Yes, I told myself, it is finally over. I waited another few minutes for Henri Pachot to come out, but he did not. I stood up and stretched and looked across the highway at the river, so tranquil, its water as blue as the sky. The willows near the edge of the water were just as still, and no breeze stirred the Spanish moss that hung from the cypresses. I could hear the horn as the bus came around the big bend a mile away on its way into Bayonne. I looked toward Pachot's house again, and I started back down the quarter. I knew it was over, but I would wait until I heard from the courthouse. I looked back several times, but no Henri Pachot. I was the only person in the road, just me, and my gray car parked farther down the quarter, in front of my aunt's house. I took my time walking and occasionally slapped my leg with the waistcoat. When I came up even with the church, I stopped out in the road to look at Miss Emma's house again. The door was still shut. The curtain hung limp in the window. I wondered if she knew it was finally over. Just before going into the churchyard, I looked back up the corridor, and now I did see a car coming toward me. The driver drove slowly to keep down the dust. It didn't look like Pachot's car, and I knew it was not Reverend Ambrose's. I moved into the ditch as Paul came up even with me and stopped. We looked at each other, and I knew he had come to bring me the news. I didn't go up to the car as I was supposed to do. I waited for him to make his move. I saw him reach for something on the seat beside him, then he opened the door and got out. He had a notebook, just like the one I had given Jefferson. I waited for him to come to me. "He wanted me to bring you this." Paul looked directly at me, his gray blue eyes more intense than I had ever seen them before. I took the notebook from him, and he continued to stare at me, like someone in shock. "Do you have a minute?" he asked me. "Yes, but I'll have to go inside first. I left the children on their knees. I'll be right back." The children all looked at me as I walked up the aisle to the table. I told them to rise from their knees. When they had all sat down, some of them rubbing their knees before sitting, I told them I had to speak to someone, and I wanted them to remain quiet until I got back. I told them that Jefferson had sent a notebook to me, and I was going to leave it on the table, and later we would talk. I left Irene Cole in charge and went back outside. Paul and I started walking down the corridor. We were both quiet. I waited for him to begin. "It went as well as it could have gone." He spoke slowly as we walked abreast. He looking up ahead, I down at the ground. "There was no trouble. He was a little shaky, but no trouble." Paul was quiet a moment. Then suddenly he stopped walking. After going another step, I stopped, too, and looked back at him. "He was the strongest man in that crowded room, Grant Wiggins," Paul said, staring at me and speaking louder than was necessary. "He was. He was. I'm not saying this to make you feel good. I'm not saying this to ease your pain. Ask that preacher. Ask Harry Williams. He was the strongest man there. We all stood jammed together, no more than 6, 8 feet away from that chair. We all had each other to lean on. When Vincent asked him if he had any last words, he looked at the preacher and said, 'Tell Nanny I walked.' And straight he walked, Grant Wiggins. Straight he walked. I'm a witness. Straight he walked." Paul stopped talking. He was breathing heavily. He was looking at me but seeing Jefferson in that chair. We started walking again. We were passing by Miss Emma's house, but Paul didn't know this. He had never been in the corridor before. "After they put that death cloth over his face, I couldn't watch anymore. I looked down at the floor," Paul was saying. His voice was quieter, less intense now. "I heard the 2 jolts, but I wouldn't look up. I'll never forget the sound of that generator as long as I live on this earth." We came to the end of the corridor and stood on the railroad tracks while gazing across the field at the rows of early cane. Paul got in front of me to look in my face. "You're one great teacher, Grant Wiggins," he said. "I'm not great. I'm not even a teacher." "Why do you say that?" "You have to believe to be a teacher," I said, looking at the rows of new cane. To the right of where we were standing were the tall pecan trees in the cemetery. There would be another grave there within a day or 2. "I saw the transformation, Grant Wiggins," Paul said. "I didn't do it." "Who did?" "Maybe he did it himself." "He never could have done that. I saw the transformation. I'm a witness to that." "Then maybe it was God," I said. Paul continued to look at me. He did not like the way I had used the name of God. He came from good stock. He believed. But he didn't say anything. "You ready to start back?" I asked him. I didn't open his notebook, Paul said. We had turned and were walking up the corridor now. I didn't think it was my place to open the notebook. He asked me to bring it to you, and I brought it to you. But I would like to know his thoughts sometime, if you don't mind. "After I read it," I said. "I suppose this has been very hard on everybody." "Hard on the people here," I said. "School is just about ready to end, huh?" Paul asked after a while. "Yes," I said. "We start a month later and get out 2 months earlier than the whites do." "What are you going to do when school is over? Go on a vacation?" "I don't know. It depends on Vivian. Whatever she wants." "She's beautiful," Paul said. "You're a lucky fellow there, Grant Wiggins." "Yes, I'm lucky," I said. "Some of us are." "I'm sorry," Paul said. "I am very, very sorry." We had stopped for a moment. Now we started walking again. "If I could ever be of any help, I would like you to call on me. I mean that with all my heart." We were passing by Miss Emma's house. Reverend Ambrose's car was parked before the door. "Isn't that the preacher's car?" Paul asked. "That's where Jefferson lived. That's his Nannin's house." Paul looked at the house as we went by. He looked at it again over his shoulder. We came up to the church and stopped at his car. "Well, I better go in to the children," I said. Paul stuck out his hand. "Allow me to be your friend, Grant Wiggins. I don't ever want to forget this day. I don't ever want to forget him." I took his hand. He held mine with both of his. "I don't know what you're going to say when you go back in there, but tell them he was the bravest man in that room today. I'm a witness, Grant Wiggins. Tell them so. Maybe one day you will come back and tell them so. It would be an honor." I turned from him and went into the church. Irene Cole told the class to rise with their shoulders back. I went up to the desk and turned to face them. I was crying.
We hope you've enjoyed this unabridged production of A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines, read by J. Long.